Chapter 68. Just as the voice rang out, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Yang Kai. Without any explanation, this person's palm landed on Yang Kai's shoulder. With an unparalleled strength, Yang Kai let out a groan and was sent flying. Brother Yang, Li Yun Tian and the others turned pale with fright. They hurried forward to support Yang Kai. Yang Kai struggled to get up. He lightly coughed while sizing up the newcomer. He saw a youth standing next to Wei Zhuan. His expression was dark as he stared at him. With one hand supporting the staggering Wei Zhuan, he asked, "Young Master Zhuan, are you all right?" Wei Zhuan resentfully glared at Yang Kai. His body staggered as he shook his head. "I'm fine." "It's good that you're fine. I came late." The youth couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Although his strength was higher than Wei Zhuan's, he was still a subordinate of the first elder. In terms of status, he couldn't compare to Wei Zhuan. "You're not too late." Wei Zhuan sneered and asked in a strange voice, "Brother Chao, as a disciple of the disciplinary hall, you should know the rules of the sect like the back of your hand. Let me ask you, if someone dares to commit murder within the sect, what is the punishment?" Chao Zhengwen's expression turned cold as he firmly said, "Depending on the severity of the case, the light punishment is breaking the hands and feet and expelling the offender from the Sky Tower Pavilion. The heavy punishment is killing the offender on the spot as a warning to others." Wei Zhuan laughed and pointed at Yang Kai. "Just now, this person tried to kill me. Brother Chao, you decide what to do." With someone backing him up, how could Wei Zhuan compromise like before? Chao Zhengwen sternly shouted, "Is this true?" Wei Zhuan sneered, "When Brother Chao came, didn't you see everything?" Chao Zhengwen nodded, "That's right. Just now, this disciple really did hold a weapon against young Master Zhuan's chest. If I didn't stop him in time, young Master Zhuan would have been killed. This person is really daring. He dares to commit such a crime in broad daylight." The two of them sang the same tune and cooperated seamlessly. In a flash, they pinned the crime of murder on Yang Kai. "Bullshit," Li Yun Tian roared. "Just now, Brother Yang and Wei Zhuan were only sparring. How could it be as serious as you say? What are you trying to do by distorting the truth?" Chao Zhengwen snorted. "Is it really that simple?" Zhao Hu said, "If you don't believe me, you can ask the brothers who are here to watch the show. We can all testify." Moreover, this matter was started by Wei Zhuang. Brother Yang was only dragged into it. "Someone will testify? Who will testify?" Wei Zhuan tilted his head and sneered as he looked around. Many of the High Heaven Pavilion disciples who had gathered to watch the fun suddenly scattered like birds and beasts, quickly fleeing the scene. They had all heard of the pavilion's elder struggle, so they naturally didn't have the courage to intervene. No matter which side they offended, their future days in High Heaven Pavilion wouldn't be good. When Li Yuntian saw this scene, he couldn't help but grit his teeth in anger, but he still straightened his neck and said, "We participated in the entire process. We know every detail clearly. We are the witnesses." Chao Zhengwen shook his head. "You gathered a crowd to fight, so you are guilty. How can you testify?" "Gathered a crowd to fight?" Zhao Hu jumped up and roared. "It was clearly Wei Zhuang who asked his subordinates to challenge us. Where did this come from?" Chao Zhengwen, don't think that just because you are a disciplinary disciple you can do whatever you want. High Heaven Pavilion is not for you to decide. "How dare you?" Chao Zhengwen rebuked. "The disciplinary hall represents High Heaven Pavilion's rules. It has always been fair and just. You dare to question the disciplinary hall's authority, your crime is even worse. If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Yang Kai waved his hand to stop Li Yuntian and the others from arguing. Looking at Chao Zhengwen, he sneered, "Fair and just? Today I have seen what is called fair and just." "Humph." Chao Zhengwen sneered and shouted, "Arrest all of them. After the Elder Council's discussion, they will be dealt with." So. A series of clothes flapping sounds came from all directions. More than 10 disciplinary hall disciples rushed out from all directions. Even the weakest among them was at the initial element boundary 5th stage. How could Li Yuntian and the others be a match for them? In just a few moments, they were all pinned to the ground and restrained. Yang Kai didn't resist because he knew that it would be useless even if he did. "Let's wait and see." Wei Zhuang was a petty person who got what he wanted. He walked in front of Yang Kai and sneered at him. "Take them away," Xiao Zhengwen ordered. The disciplinary hall disciples took Li Yuntian and the others away. Looking at the unconscious sassafras on the ground, Xiao Zhengwen frowned. He didn't care about Yang Kai and Li Yuntian, but Sassafras's identity was special. He didn't have the guts to touch him. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Send junior brother to the second elder." "Yes." Someone answered and picked up Sassafras from the ground and hurriedly left. "Young Master Zhuang, you've suffered," Xiao Zhengwen said softly. Wei Zhuang narrowed his eyes and gritted his teeth. "That Yang Kai, I definitely can't let him go. He humiliated me today. If I don't take revenge, I won't be a man. You should know what to do." Xiao Zhengwen hesitated. "Young Master Zhuang, today's matter is a bit big. It will definitely alarm the elders. If we make a move now, I'm afraid it won't be good. Why don't we wait for the elders to make a decision before making a move?" "But I can't take this lying down," Wei Zhuang said with a ferocious expression. "Don't worry, I'll help you teach him a lesson. I'll let him know the consequences of offending you. Don't beat him to death. I want to end him with my own hands." "As you wish." In High Heaven Pavilion's forest prison, Yang Kai and his group were all imprisoned here. The forest prison was dark and damp, the temperature was very cold, and there were rats and mosquitoes everywhere. Waves of nauseating stench rushed in from all directions. The environment was extremely bad. The forest prison was the place where Sky Tower imprisoned disciples who made mistakes. Li Yuntian and the others never thought that they would one day be imprisoned here. Each and every one of them had a bad taste in their mouths. "Brother Yang, this time we've implicated you." Li Yuntian sat next to Yang Kai and softly apologized. Yang Kai smiled. "This isn't your fault. I couldn't help but jump out. I can't bear to see my own family fighting each other." "Fighting each other?" Li Yuntian almost choked. Didn't these words also include us? To put it nicely, it's called fighting each other. To put it bluntly, isn't it fighting each other? Yang Kai chuckled. "That's true. But Brother Yang, don't worry. Young Master Su won't ignore us. We only need to wait here for a few hours, and young Master Su will be able to rescue us." Li Yuntian's thoughts were relatively simple. Yang Kai turned his body and assumed a more comfortable position. "Tell me, why is there a rift between the Great Elder and the Second Elder?" Li Yuntian heard this and sighed. "This is related to our sect leader." "Oh, I'd like to hear the details." Li Yuntian said, "Last time, young Master Su also told you about the sect leader's two disciples. Ever since the sect leader left the mountain to capture the second disciple and banish him to the coiling dragon stream, our sect leader rarely appears in front of others. He doesn't even pay attention to the matters of the Sky Tower. These past few years, the Great Elder has been acting as the sect leader. Maybe it's because he's been here for a long time that he's become more ambitious. The Great Elder now truly considers himself the sect leader. The Second Elder doesn't like this and thinks that the Great Elder often oversteps his boundaries. Over time, there will naturally be friction." Chapter 69. In the current Sky Tower Pavilion, the Great Elder, Fourth Elder, and Fifth Elder have allied together. The Great Elder is the leader, while the Second Elder and Third Elder belong to another faction. The former wants to replace the sect leader, while the latter wants to protect the sect leader. It's just that the Great Elder's faction is a bit stronger. The Second Elder and Third Elder have suffered many losses in the past few years. Hearing Li Yuntian's words, Yang Kai immediately understood. If the elders don't get along, then the younger generation will naturally fight as well. The conflict between Sassafras and Wei Zhuan probably came about because of this. Zhao Hu sneered, "It's just that when the tiger doesn't come out of the mountain, the monkey is the king. If the sect leader really does appear, then who are the Great Elder and the others?" Li Yuntian stared at Zhao Hu and said, "Don't talk behind our backs. We younger generation disciples shouldn't speak ill of our elders, even if we don't like their methods." Zhao Hu stuck out his tongue and said softly, "Isn't that what you think too?" Li Yuntian said, "But I won't say it." In the contribution hall, Xianing Chong hurriedly rushed in. Old Man Ming looked at her with a smile and said, "Disciple, you've come to see your master again today?" "In." This old man is very happy to see you so filial. Xianing Chang anxiously said, Master, something bad has happened. What happened? Meng Wuya was a bit puzzled. He had never seen his disciple so flustered before. Xianing Chang quickly told him about the conflict between Yang Kai and Wei Zhuan today. After hearing this, Meng Wuya's face became gloomy. You're saying that Yang Kai has already reached the initial element boundary third stage? And he even defeated Wei Zhuan? Yes. Xianing Chang repeatedly nodded. She thought to herself, I was the one who helped him break through. It seems that his last fortuitous encounter in the Black Wind Mountain was not small. His cultivation speed is very fast. Meng Wuya was slightly surprised. Master, don't be so emotional. You should quickly think of a way to save him, Xianing Chang said anxiously. Hearing this, Meng Wuya stared blankly at his disciple. With a strange expression, he asked, Disciple, why are you so nervous? Xianing Chang was stunned and stammered, Do I? Yes, you are very nervous now. Meng Wuya nodded. His disciple was as pure as ice and as pure as jade. No one knew her better than he did. Over the years, it wasn't as if there weren't any outstanding male disciples who had pursued her, but her attitude towards them had always been one of respect and respect. Today, however, she had actually asked for help for someone who was only at the initial element boundary third stage. Obviously, this wasn't normal. Xianing Chang said, I just don't want his path of cultivation to be stifled just as it has begun to take shape. Are you very familiar with him? Meng Wuya immediately became vigilant. No, but I've been observing him for 2 years. Master, you also know that I'm on duty in the Dark Hall. I'm responsible for the territory where he lives. Xianing Chang told the truth, then begged again. Master, please think of a way to save him. This time, he has offended the Great Elder. Without the help of an expert, I'm afraid he won't be able to escape this calamity. The second elder may not necessarily care about his life or death. Master, you are that expert. Meng Wuya's face was full of enjoyment. Flattery always worked, not to mention it was his own precious disciple who was flattering him. After feeling proud for a while, Meng Wuya frowned. Disciple, this matter is not something Master can intervene in. You see, this is after all High Heaven Pavilion's internal affairs. This old master is just a caretaker. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to intervene. This was the truth. Although he had a good impression of Yang Kai, as an outsider, how could he have the nerve to intervene in High Heaven Pavilion's affairs? Xianing Chang didn't answer. She just stared at Meng Wuya with a pair of watery eyes. Although there was a veil covering her face, Meng Wuya could still see her angry little face. Meng Wuya couldn't stand this kind of look, so he immediately put on a bitter face. Hey, my little grandaunt, don't be so stubborn. Even if this old master doesn't intervene, the second elder will definitely make arrangements. This time, Yang Kai was involved because of sassafras. If the second elder doesn't intervene, how will he win over people's hearts in the future? What if? Xianing Chang asked angrily. There shouldn't be any what if. Meng Wuya was also a bit uncertain. After all, when the upper echelons fought, sacrificing 1 or 2 disciples was a very common thing. Humph. Xianing Chang turned around and sat down on a chair next to him. She said sullenly, Master, if you don't help him, then I won't be able to go to the 9th Een congregation ground. I'm afraid your disciple's strength will stop there for the rest of his life. Hearing this, Meng Wuya turned pale with fright. He ran out from behind the counter and stood in front of Xianing Chang. He lowered his posture like he was serving a grand. Where did this come from? Xianing Chang turned her head and didn't say anything. Meng Wuya quickly turned around and walked in front of Xianing Chang again. Tell me, why can't you go there if you don't help him? In any case, if you don't care about his life or death, then you don't need to care about my life or death either. Master, you are such a heartless person. These words were like a sharp arrow that shot straight at Meng Wuya's heart. It was like he was struck by lightning. His whole body trembled, and his little heart broke into countless pieces. Grandaunt, my grandaunt, can't we talk nicely? These old bones of mine can't stand you tormenting me like this. Meng Wuya bowed again and again. He was extremely humble. How was this the attitude toward a disciple? This was clearly the attitude toward an ancestor. Xianing Chang turned her head and stared at Meng Wuya. She said softly, "He cultivates a yang attribute martial skill, and the yang qi in his body is incomparably pure." Yang attribute yuan qi? Meng Wuya's expression was dignified. To what extent is it pure? It's 5 times purer than the person you found last time. Xianing Chang replied. You tested it? Meng Wuya couldn't wait to confirm. Yes. If that's the case, then nothing can happen to him. Meng Wuya suddenly straightened his back. After thinking for a moment, he walked out. When he reached the door, he paused and looked back at Xianing Chang. He asked, "Disciple, do you dislike him?" "No." Xianing Chang slowly shook her head. "Then you like him?" "It's not that I like him, I just don't dislike him." Xianing Chang's face turned red. Good, good, good. You know what you have to do if you want to go there, but you have to promise me that you won't be tempted by him. Only then will I go save him. Master, what are you saying? Xianing Chang was very embarrassed. I haven't even spoken to him. These words made Xianing Chang feel very guilty. She couldn't help but recall the awkwardness of last night. It's not that I want to cut off your love, but this kind of small place is not a place for you. There's no one here that you can fall in love with. Sooner or later, you'll reach a height that no one can reach. At that time, you will live for hundreds of years, or even thousands of years, while the person you love will slowly die of old age in front of you. I don't want you to suffer that kind of pain. Disciple, you have to remember, the peak of martial arts is loneliness, loneliness, and loneliness. Chapter 70. Meng Wuya's words were said with a sigh, as if he was speaking from his heart. Xianing Chang could naturally hear the grief in his words. Could it be that Master had experienced this kind of thing? Just as he was about to ask, Meng Wuya had already disappeared. At the same time, in Black Wind Trade, in front of the High Heaven Pavilion disciples' wooden house, a sweaty young man hurriedly ran over. Standing in front of the door, he gently knocked and calmed his breathing before softly calling out, "Senior Sister Sue?" "What's the matter?" A cold voice came from inside. The voice was very pleasant to hear, but it carried a kind of coldness that repelled people thousands of miles away. The sweat on the young man's body almost condensed into ice. Shivering, he said, "Young Master Sassafras has been knocked unconscious. His subordinates have also been arrested by the Law Enforcement Hall and locked up in the forest prison." As soon as his voice fell, the door of the wooden house suddenly opened and a white-clothed Su Yin appeared in front of him. The man quickly retreated 2 steps and lowered his head, not daring to look directly at Su Yan's flawless face. "Speak clearly, what happened?" Su Yin lightly asked, but the whole wooden house was emitting a burst of cold air visible to the naked eye. Cracking sounds could be heard from the ground, the sound of ice forming. The young man quickly made a long story short and told the whole story. After he finished, he waited for a long time, but there was no movement from the other side. He couldn't help but whisper, "Senior Sister Sue?" After calling out, there was still no response. The man gathered his courage and quietly looked up, but there was no trace of Su Yin. She had already left at some point. Oh my God! The High Heaven Pavilion disciple almost collapsed and fell to the ground. This Senior Sister Sue was too cold. In the future, whoever married her would have to sleep under a quilt on a hot day. However, for such a cold and noble person like Senior Sister Sue, there was no man in the world who could match up to her, right? No one would have thought that just a small conflict between High Heaven Pavilion's younger generation disciples would cause such a stir and stir up so many heroes. In the High Heaven Pavilion's forest prison, Yang Kai, Li Yuntian, and the others were still imprisoned. It had already been more than an hour since they were captured, but there was still no movement outside. Li Yuntian and the rest were anxious. They didn't know why Sassafras hadn't made a move yet, but on second thought, Sassafras had been knocked unconscious at that time, and he didn't know if he had woken up yet. If he hadn't woken up, there was no way to rescue him. Just as he was worrying, the gate of the forest prison was suddenly opened. Along with the sound of footsteps, a disciple of the Law Enforcement Hall came to the cell where Yang Kai and the others were imprisoned. After opening the door, he shouted, "Who is Yang Kai?" Yang Kai answered in a deep voice, I am. Come with me. The disciple of the law enforcement hall impolitely ordered, Someone wants to see you. Yang Kai's face darkened. He sneered, but he wasn't afraid. He walked out. Brother Yang, don't go out. Wait for young Master Su to come and save us. Li Yuntian was alarmed and pulled on Yang Kai. Let go. The disciple of the law enforcement hall angrily shouted, Whoever dares to stop him is an enemy of the law enforcement hall. You know the consequences. Yang Kai said to Li Yuntian, I'll go take a look. Don't worry. Li Yuntian helplessly let go and said in a deep voice, Brother Yang, be careful. Humph. The disciple of the law enforcement hall sneered, You overestimate yourself? Walking out of the cell, the disciple locked the gate and then led Yang Kai outside. Not long after, they arrived in front of a room. The disciple opened the door and said with a strange smile, Please come in. Yang Kai turned his head and looked at him. He also sneered and stepped in. The disciple of the law enforcement hall followed closely behind and closed the door with a bang. Almost as soon as the door was closed, Yang Kai suddenly turned around and slammed his palm on the chest of the disciple who led him in. Burning hot true Yang Yuan Qi poured into the disciple's body. The disciple immediately screamed and was pushed into the wall. He never thought that Yang Kai would dare to attack him. This time, he took the full brunt of Yang Kai's attack and almost couldn't catch his breath. You have big dog guts. An angry shout came from inside the room. Immediately, 3 or 4 figures danced and pounced on Yang Kai. Yang Kai only had time to block one of the attacks. In the next moment, he was knocked to the ground, followed by a series of punches and kicks. In the chaos, Yang Kai roared. Blood overflowed from the corner of his mouth. The sweet taste of blood made Yang Kai excited. His blood boiled. At this moment, true Yang Yuan Qi was flowing in his meridians at an incredible speed. The burning heat seeped out of his bones and spread throughout his body. Yang Kai's skin became fiery red. This time, the energy coming from his bones seemed to be much stronger than before. Roar! Yang Kai, who was being besieged, suddenly leapt up into the air. While in midair, he kicked out with his legs, hitting the heads of 2 law enforcement hall disciples. Accompanied by 2 screams, the 2 stumbled backwards. But before Kai Yang could land on the ground, a person appeared from the side and accurately grabbed his ankle. With a fierce fling, Kai Yang was flung into the wall like a ragged sack. Groaning, his internal organs were all turned upside down. Struggling to get up, Yang Kai wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Under the dim light of the room, he was able to clearly see the situation in the room. This was a sealed secret room. There were 5 disciples of the law enforcement hall. According to the Yuan Qi fluctuations from the fight just now, Yang Kai estimated that their strength was around the initial element boundary. The one who threw him out had a violent Yuan Qi, which was the sign that he had already entered the Qi transformation stage. 1 against 5. Moreover, the gap between their realms was quite large. This battle was destined to be a one-sided battle. But Yang Kai was smiling. In this adversity, Yang Kai's fighting spirit was surging fiercely. You dare to take the initiative to injure others. The Qi transformation stage disciple shouted coldly. Your courage is not small. The other 4 stood behind him, staring coldly at Yang Kai. They had received orders from Chao Zhengwen to teach Yang Kai a good lesson, as long as they did not kill him. They did not expect that just as they entered the room, Yang Kai would actually take the initiative to attack, catching them off guard and causing them to lose face. Heh. Yang Kai leaned against the wall with his head slightly lowered. His scarlet eyes looked at the 5 people and said coldly, You want to hit me? Do you think I can't retaliate? The Qi transformation stage disciple's face darkened. He laughed sinisterly. You are quite smart. Since you know what we are thinking, then don't retaliate. Obediently let us beat you up, so that young Master Wei Zhuan can vent his anger. If you dare to retaliate, you may lose an arm or a leg. You can try. Yang Kai looked at him coldly. Stubborn fool. Beat him up. Under the order, the 5 people moved out again. Their moves were ruthless, not showing the slightest mercy. With their strength, it was more than enough to deal with Yang Kai one-on-one. Now that the five of them were attacking together, it was naturally easy to teach young Kai a lesson. To be continued. Chapter 71. The secret room was suddenly thrown into chaos. Angry roars and the sound of punches and kicks were incessant. Occasionally, one or two groans could be heard, and blood splattered everywhere. As the saying goes, it is difficult for two fists to fight four hands. Yang Kai's strength was already lacking compared to these people. Now that he was fighting one against five, how could he protect himself? Often, when he fought with others, he would have to endure 4 or 5 attacks. These disciplinary disciples were even more ruthless. Although they wouldn't take Yang Kai's life, after suffering such a beating, anyone would have to lie in bed for at least 1 to 2 months. Stop! After a long while, the chi transforming stage disciplinary disciple suddenly shouted and quickly jumped out of the ring. Stop fighting. If you continue, you will kill him. The other 4 people also hurriedly retreated. They stared at Yang Kai, who was lying on the ground, with some fear in their eyes. Fuck! One of them covered his cheek. I was slapped by him. My teeth almost fell out. The other man covered his crotch with a look of lingering fear. I almost lost my bloodline. If I didn't dodge fast enough, the first one to lie down would have been me. Even if he avoided his vital parts, he still felt a burning pain in his thigh. Yang Kai struggled to resist the powerful kick. Even now, when he thought about it, he still felt a chill in his heart. The 5 of them looked at each other, all of them stunned, because although they had managed to defeat Kai Yang in this battle, each of them had more or less been left with some scars on their bodies. This discovery shocked the 5 people. The 5 people's faces suddenly became embarrassed. Wasn't this too embarrassing? How could a trial disciple, who was only at the 3rd level of the initial element realm, be so cruel? When they were ganging up on him, they didn't care much about it. Now that they thought about it, they found it inconceivable. Pooh! A sound came. The 5 people followed the sound and saw that Yang Kai, who should have been paralyzed on the ground, actually stood up shakily and spat out a mouthful of blood. His body flickered between light and darkness, constantly changing. There was a faint red light shining, and a scorching hot feeling rushed toward him, as if a volcano that had been dormant for thousands of years had finally erupted. This Yuan Qi fluctuation. The Qi transformation stage disciple was shocked. Something is wrong. How could this be the Yuan Qi fluctuation of a 3rd stage initial element realm disciple? It was obvious that he had already reached the peak of the initial element stage. If he took another step forward, he would most likely reach the Qi transformation stage. He can still stand up? The person next to him opened his eyes wide and almost bit his own tongue. Even if it was him, if he was beaten up like this, he was afraid that he wouldn't even have the strength to move a finger. How could he stand up? He's here. Another person suddenly screamed. Before he could finish his words, the originally trembling Yang Kai suddenly rushed towards the 5 people like a gust of wind. Halfway through, Yang Kai's fist became fiery red, like a soldering iron that had been fished out from a charcoal fire. The person who shouted used all the Yuan Qi in his body and fiercely exchanged a punch with Yang Kai. Boom! The person flew backwards and hit the wall before falling to the ground. He felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. Yang Kai's body slightly paused, but he had already found his second target. Presumptuous! The Qi transformation stage disciple leader was furious. His 5 brothers were fighting against a junior brother. Not only were they unable to defeat him, but they were also counterattacked. If this spread out, what kind of scandal would this be? Where were they supposed to put their faces? In his anger, the Qi transformation stage disciple pushed out his palm and shouted in a deep voice, "Whirling wind force." The room was suddenly filled with a whistling sound. From the palm of this person, a small tornado visible to the naked eye burst out, directly meeting Yang Kai's fist. Kacha! Kacha! A series of cracking sounds were heard. The clothes on Yang Kai's arm seemed to have been cut by countless blades, instantly becoming tattered. His entire arm was also covered with bloodstains. Yang Kai's crimson eyes revealed a shocked expression. His true Yang Yuan Qi moved, fiercely gushing out from his arm, blocking the opponent's martial skill. With a whoosh, a ball of fire exploded in the secret chamber. Yang Kai's true Yang Yuan Qi merged with the Qi transforming stage disciple's whirlwind energy and ignited it. Amidst the flames, Yang Kai's fist flew out and collided with the palm of the Qi transforming stage disciple. Both sides were forced to retreat. What are you waiting for? Beat him up. The Qi transforming stage disciple's palm turned red. He had never thought that the opponent's Yuan Qi would be so strange. Although it did not injure him, he had still suffered some losses. Enraged, he immediately roared. The other 3 disciplinary hall disciples recovered from their shock. They rushed forward and surrounded Yang Kai. Using all of their skills, they began to beat up Yang Kai. The other man, who was the first to be sent flying by Yang Kai, also joined in angrily. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the 4 people gradually stopped. While gasping for breath, they retreated a few feet away from Yang Kai. They were almost an entire room away from him as they vigilantly sized him up. They were really shocked by this junior brother's craziness. The second time they ganged up on him, the results were obvious. Yang Kai's injuries were several times more serious than the previous ones. But the 4 people also paid a different price. He won't get up again, right? One of them covered his mouth and coughed as he softly asked. After coughing, there was a pool of blood in his hand. He shouldn't. He was already beaten to this extent. Another person rubbed his eyes. There was a bruise there and even a big blister, as if he had been scalded by boiling water. The 5 people felt bitter in their hearts. They felt that they had suffered such a big loss because of the terrain. In this small secret room, 5 people against 1 person seemed to have the advantage, but in reality, it was very difficult for them to attack at the same time. But the opponent didn't have so many scruples. There were enemies everywhere, so he could fight as he pleased. If they were in the wilderness and could use all of their strength, why would they be in such an awkward situation? But this junior brother called Yang Kai's strength was really amazing. A normal initial element boundary 3rd level was simply not his opponent. No wonder Wei Zhuan was defeated by him. Just when the 5 people thought that Yang Kai had been beaten to the ground, he unexpectedly moved again. He was extremely weak and battered, but little by little he straightened his body. The Yuan Qi fluctuations emitted from his body not only did not weaken, but also surged. Damn it! The Qi transformation stage disciple cursed. What kind of freak was this junior brother? Why didn't he faint after being beaten like this? Don't come over if you do. I'll really beat you to death. The person with the bruise on his eye shouted. This was an extremely comical scene. The people who were beating the other person huddled together and shouted for the one who was beaten to not come over. On the contrary, the one who was beaten seemed to be in a daze. His whole body was covered in blood, and he was moving step by step towards the 5 people. Every step he took was heavy, and every step he took was shaky, as if he would fall at any moment, but he still continued to walk forward. If it weren't for the wall behind them, the 5 people would have retreated. To be continued. Chapter 72. A series of gulping sounds could be heard. Brother, what should we do? One of them nervously asked. He was afraid that if they continued to beat this Yang Kai to death, this is a fucking madman. The Qi transforming stage disciple's eyes slightly trembled as he cursed. I don't care. If he dares to come over, then we'll beat him. This time we must knock him out. Okay. The other 4 awkwardly replied. Just as the 5 of them were on high alert, a chill suddenly rose from the bottom of their hearts, causing the temperature of the entire room to drop by a lot. Cracking sounds could be heard from all directions, causing the 5 of them to turn their heads in amazement. They saw that the walls and floor of the room were covered with a thin layer of frost. What's going on? One of them doubtfully asked as he shivered. Bang! The door to the secret room was kicked open by someone. Who is it? The Qi transforming stage law enforcement disciple shouted and turned his head to look. His mouth suddenly opened to the size of a duck's egg, and he couldn't close it no matter how hard he tried. Although the temperature of the room had dropped to the point where it was as cold as winter, a thin layer of cold sweat suddenly appeared on this person's forehead. He stared blankly at the woman who appeared at the door and stammered, Sue. Senior Sister Su Yin. Senior Sister Su Yin? The other 4 people's faces also changed greatly as they followed his gaze. Sure enough, They saw a beautiful woman with a cold expression and wearing a pure white dress standing there. She was like a pure white snow lotus blooming on a snowy mountain that had never melted since ancient times. She brought a chill with her as she descended to the world. She was so noble, so cold. Wherever her beautiful eyes swept past, the five of them felt a sense of inferiority. They all unconsciously lowered their heads. Su Yin had just hurriedly returned from Black Wind Trade, so she didn't have time to investigate the situation. She only thought that Sassafras had also been taken into the forest prison. After rushing in, she noticed that there were traces of a battle and immediately came to investigate. After opening the door, what she saw made her heart tremble. There were 6 people in the room. 5 of them were law enforcement disciples. One was at the second stage of the Qi transforming stage, while the other 4 were at the initial element boundary. The last one was covered in blood, and his clothes were tattered. He stood there unsteadily, but his eyes were filled with an unyielding will. I've seen this person before. Yang Kai. Once, Sassafras had brought him to Black Wind Trade. He was the disciple who had defeated Cheng Xiaofeng. Using her divine sense to investigate, Su Yin was even more surprised. She could clearly sense that this Yang Kai was covered in wounds. Although these wounds weren't life-threatening, with his strength, it was absolutely impossible for him to still be standing. He should have been lying on the ground by now. Just how tenacious was his will to be able to withstand such a heavy blow without collapsing? In just a few moments, Su Yin already knew everything that had happened in this room. For the first time, a nameless fire rose in his heart, which was rarely stirred up. In a flash, Su Yin arrived at Yang Kai's side. Supporting him with one hand, she poured her ice-cold yuan qi into his body and controlled his internal and external injuries. Strangely enough, after being stimulated by this ice-cold feeling, Yang Kai's tumbling blood quickly calmed down. His drowsy mind also immediately cleared up. A clear fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose. Yang Kai turned his head to look at Su Yin, who was standing beside him. His ferocious face gradually calmed down. This senior sister wasn't very tall. She was half a head shorter than him. But at this moment, Yang Kai felt a kind of tranquility that he had never felt before. It was as if he was in an empty snowy mountain. There was only a refreshing coolness, and all the noise in the world had disappeared. With her by his side, Yang Kai couldn't help but feel an urge to join hands with her and live in seclusion in the mountains. Who did it? Su Yan's indifferent and cold voice sounded. The 5 people from the disciplinary hall trembled. They looked at each other, then lowered their heads and said, "Everyone did it." In front of Su Yin, it was as if even lying was blasphemy. Her noble and inviolable temperament and majesty made them not dare to lie. Su Yin nodded slightly. Very good. After saying this, she supported Yang Kai and turned around, leaving the secret room step by step. Only after Su Yan's figure disappeared did the 5 people let out a heavy sigh of relief, feeling as if they had just survived a disaster. But before the 5 people could rejoice, they suddenly felt a chill on their chests. Looking down, they saw that there was a little bit of frost on their chests. Then, this frost quickly expanded, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into an ice flower half the size of a palm. With a hua sound, the 5 ice flowers shattered at the same time. The 5 people groaned and knelt on the ground with pale faces. They only felt that their yuan qi had disappeared along with the explosion of the ice flowers. Moreover, their bodies had also suffered heavy injuries. So strong, worthy of being the number 1 person of the 3 sects. The Qi transforming stage disciplinary hall disciple's face was pale. He was shivering from the cold, and his face was filled with lingering fear. He didn't see when Su Yin had made her move, but he had unknowingly been hit by her attack. If it wasn't for this senior sister's calm temperament, today's situation wouldn't have been as simple as just a few injuries. With her strength, if she wanted to take their lives, it would be as easy as pinching a conch with her 10 fingers. Outside the secret room, Yang Kai was still staggering forward. Hearing the movement behind him, he turned his head and looked at Su Yin in astonishment. "You made a move on them?" Su Yin blinked her long eyelashes. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." Yang Kai nodded. "Oh right, bring Li Yuntian and the others out too." What about sassafras? Su Yin asked. I don't know. Yang Kai slowly shook his head. He wasn't imprisoned. He should have been sent back. Those people wouldn't dare to touch sassafras. Hearing this, Su Yin let out a sigh of relief. The two of them walked into the depths of the forest prison. Not long after, they arrived at the place where Li Yuntian and the others were imprisoned. Seeing Yang Kai and Su Yin appear together, and being so intimate, they were so shocked that their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They even forgot to breathe. Heavens! If I could be so intimate with senior sister Su, I would be willing to be beaten to death. Li Yuntian and the others were so envious that they wanted to die. Come out. Su Yin waved her hand and broke the lock on the cell door. Oh! The group of people unconsciously responded and then walked out in a daze. More than 10 pairs of eyes kept looking at Yang Kai and Su Yin. No matter how calm Su Yin's temperament was, being stared at like this, her expression became unnatural. Come, I'll take you out. Su Yin's pretty face was cold as she supported Yang Kai and walked in front. Li Yuntian and the others followed behind. Not long after, the group of people walked out of the forest prison. The bright light shone in, causing everyone to squint their eyes. However, outside the forest prison, nearly 100 disciplinary hall disciples were waiting in formation, surrounding the exit. What a big lineup! Yang Kai sneered, Senior sister, I'm afraid this is used to deal with you, right? Su Yin didn't answer. She just faintly glanced at the crowd and continued to support Yang Kai as they walked forward. Wherever they passed, no one dared to block them. All the disciplinary hall disciples who blocked the way scattered in fear and took the initiative to open a path. Chapter 73. Pairs of eyes stared at Su Yin and Yang Kai who she was supporting. All kinds of envy and jealousy quickly spread, and a strong sour smell rose up. Before today, they had never seen Su Yin so close to a man. Even the several outstanding core disciples had never received such an honor. Su Yin cultivated the ice heart secret art, and her heart had been sealed in ice for many years. Not to mention seeing her close to other men, it was rare for her to even speak. Every High Heaven Pavilion disciple, regardless of their strength, status, could only be cautious in front of her, lest they offend her. But at this moment, she actually took the initiative to support a young man at the initial element boundary third stage, her jade-like small hand slightly supporting his waist, her icy face slightly blushing, looking very attractive. The person who was usually unreachable, at this moment seemed to be much closer to them. However, the hearts of countless High Heaven Pavilion male disciples were broken. They felt as if the high and mighty goddess in their hearts had been desecrated. And this person who had profaned their goddess was right in front of them, being supported by their goddess, smelling their goddess's fragrance, feeling the softness of their goddess's small hand, and enjoying a treatment that no one else could enjoy. Murderous chi. Yang Kai's mouth curved into a strange smile, his expression calm as he followed Su Yin forward, giving off the feeling of a fox exploiting a tiger's might. In front of them, a figure flashed. A handsome young man stood in front of Su Yin and Kai Yang. This person looked at Su Yin with a pair of eyes that were filled with tenderness and sweetness, but also concealed a trace of deep jealousy and unhappiness. Su Yin's footsteps paused, and she looked up at the other party. Get out of the way. As always, a cold voice sounded. Her voice was flat, without the slightest trace of anger, and no one could hear her emotions. The man smiled bitterly and shook his head. Junior sister, don't make things difficult for brother. Brother is also doing his duty. This person was the second strongest of High Heaven Pavilion's younger generation, Xia Hongchuan. Get out of the way. Su Yin still said the same words, as if she was unwilling to say another word. Xia Hongchuan helplessly said, Junior sister, these people can't leave yet. They have violated the sect's rules. Before the Elder Council makes a decision, no one can take them out of here. Sect rules? Yang Kai took a step forward and sneered, Brother, may I ask, which rule have we violated? Xia Hongchuan looked at him contemptuously and snorted, Gang fighting, murder, contempt for the law enforcement hall. Any one of these is enough to get you expelled from High Heaven Pavilion. Gang fight? Su Yin continued, Who are you fighting with? Since it was a gang fight, There should be opponents, right? Why did the law enforcement hall only arrest one of them? What about the other side? Xia Hongqin's face stiffened as he was rendered speechless. The other side of the fight was Wei Zhuan and the others, so how could they dare to catch them? Murder? Then where are the bodies of the people who were killed? Xia Hongqin smiled bitterly and hurriedly explained, attempted to commit murder, but fortunately, our law enforcement hall stopped them, so there was no big trouble. When sect disciples spar, they are responsible for their own lives. According to what you said, every pair of disciples who spar with each other are attempting to commit murder? Your law enforcement hall has so many people. If you have nothing better to do, why don't you arrest all of High Heaven Pavilion's disciples? Su Yan's expression was indifferent, her tone cold. As for the contempt for the law enforcement hall, if your law enforcement hall is really fair, who would dare to despise it? I'm afraid that the law enforcement hall, which purports to represent the sect's rules, has long been reduced to a tool in the hands of some people in a power struggle. If you destroy your own dignity, you can't blame others for stepping on you. Junior sister. Xia Hongqin's smile was dry, his handsome face showing deep helplessness. Do you have to be so blunt? Right and wrong, you know clearly in your heart. Xia Hongqin's expression was sad as he whispered, Junior sister, I have treated you with sincerity. Why do you make things so difficult for me? Su Yan lightly said, if brother's words were heard by junior sister Zhao Fei Shui, I wonder what she would think. Zhao Fei Shui, like Xia Hongqin and Su Yan, was a core disciple of High Heaven Pavilion. However, the relationship between this woman and Xia Hongqin had always been unclear. Xia Hongqin's body trembled as he stared deeply at Su Yan, his face filled with pain and helplessness. Immediately, his eyes turned and stared at Yang Kai. His eyes suddenly filled with resentment. Yang Kai's expression was calm as he stared back at him without fear. You're called Yang Kai? Xia Hongqin suppressed the bitterness in his heart and asked. Anyone who saw the woman they liked so intimately supporting another man would not feel good. What advice does brother have for me? I know this time's matter was caused by you. If it weren't for you, there wouldn't be this trouble. If you don't want to implicate junior sister Su, you should obediently return to your cell and save me the trouble of taking action. Xia Hongqin faintly said. He had no way to persuade Su Yan, nor did he dare to touch her, so he could only find an opening from Yang Kai. Yang Kai smiled. What are you smiling about? Xia Hongqin frowned and asked. Yang Kai was now covered in blood and looked quite embarrassed, but he was still smiling. While smiling, he slowly reached out and grabbed Su Yan's jade hand which was resting on his waist, gently patting it. Turning his head to look at Su Yan, he said sweetly, I also don't want to implicate senior sister, but senior sister has always treated me with sincerity. I really can't let her down, so I can only let her do as she pleases. Xia Hongqin's face suddenly paled while Su Yan stood in place, her pretty face filled with confusion. Li Yun Tian and the others' jaws dropped to the ground as strange gurgling sounds came from their throats, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't say a single word. The surrounding 100 or so disciplinary hall disciples felt as if their hearts had suddenly split open, each one dumbstruck. Senior sister, what do you say? Yang Kai seemed to be unaware of the critical situation and sprinkled a handful of salt into the boiling oil. Xia Hongqin nervously looked at Su Yan, afraid that she would give him an answer he didn't want to hear. Su Yan suddenly regained her senses. In all her life, she had never been so frivolous by a man. Her hand was actually held in his palm and caressed as he pleased. That rough hand rubbed against her skin, causing a burst of tingling pain and a bit of warmth. Su Yan was furious. She almost sent Yang Kai flying on the spot, but after thinking about it, she understood what Yang Kai wanted to do. Suppressing the anger in her heart, Su Yan nodded slightly and generously admitted, yes. While answering, she sent a stream of dark qi into Yang Kai's meridians. Yang Kai groaned as 2 streams of blood suddenly flowed out from his nostrils. Why are you bleeding? Su Yan asked as she took out a white handkerchief and gently wiped Yang Kai's blood. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Kai Yang felt a chill in his heart, thinking that although this senior sister's temperament was calm and indifferent, in reality, if you crossed her bottom line, she would not hesitate to act ruthlessly. You. Xia Hongchun was about to go crazy from jealousy. If Su Yin had just admitted it, he wouldn't have believed it, but seeing the scene in front of him made it impossible for him to doubt Su Yan's feelings. When had he ever seen Su Yin treat a man so gently? When had he ever seen Su Yan's hand being held in the palm of a man's hand without any resistance? If she wasn't really willing, with Su Yan's strength, how could this Yang Kai have succeeded? Junior sister, you are a genius. How could you fancy such a waste? Who are you calling a waste? Yang Kai and Su Yin turned their heads at the same time, their faces cloudy like the night before a storm. Chapter 74. As if they had discussed this beforehand, as if their hearts were connected, Yang Kai and Su Yin unexpectedly shouted out the same sentence. Even their tone and demeanor were the same. Xia Hongchun was startled by the roar. Looking at Su Yin in pain, he bitterly said, "How is he not a waste? In terms of status, he is just a trial disciple. In terms of cultivation strength, he is only at the initial element boundary 3rd stage. This kind of person is a waste. Junior sister, why would you like him? You don't need to worry about us." Su Yin was obviously in character. She also wanted to take this opportunity to get rid of Xia Hongchun's entanglement for so many years. She even used such intimate words. "Brother, do you know the saying love at first sight?" Yang Kai looked at Xia Hongchun playfully. "You shut up." Xia Hongchun's expression was ferocious as he roared, "I am talking to junior sister. How can a waste like you interrupt?" Yang Kai's eyes narrowed as he sneered. "A waste will always be a waste." Xia Hongchun's calm and confident demeanor had long been thrown to the back of his mind. Under the influence of jealousy and hatred, his handsome face became twisted and ugly. "When I was your age, I was already at the Qi transforming stage. You are only at the initial element 3rd stage, while I am currently at the peak of the separation and reunion boundary. There is a difference of 2 large realms and 6 small realms. How can you compare to me?" "Brother, please wait and see." Yang Kai didn't say much. Some things couldn't be said. Only by doing it would it have an effect. "Xia Hongchun, I don't want to be entangled with you here. Get out of the way. Thanks to your disciplinary hall, he is seriously injured. I want to treat him." Su Yin coldly shouted. "Today, no one will leave here." Xia Hongchun roared. Looking at Su Yin with pain, his body slightly trembling, he ordered, "Disciplinary hall disciples, listen to my order. If anyone dares to rush out, kill them all. Even if it is your senior sister Su, you must not show mercy." Deep love, deep hatred. At this moment, Xia Hongchun perfectly interpreted the meaning of this sentence. Asterisk hua hua hua. Asterisk the 100 or so law enforcement hall disciples hesitated for a moment before immediately moving, once again surrounding Su Yan's group. "You insist?" Su Yan's eyes flashed with a dangerous light. Xia Hongchun smiled bitterly. "Junior sister, I know I'm not your opponent, but if you want to pass, you'll have to step over brother's dead body." He was willing to sacrifice himself for a righteous cause, attempting to use his courage and selflessness to move Su Yin. Su Yin was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. She wasn't afraid of the law enforcement hall. Her strength was as high as Yuan Qi level 3, which was 3 levels higher than Xia Hongchun's. Once she used the Ice Heart technique, no one here could stop her. But Yang Kai and Li Yun Tian were destined to have a hard time as well. After all, she was only one person. It was impossible for her to protect everyone under her wings. The situation suddenly reached a deadlock. Su Yin didn't dare to lead her people to rush out, and the people from the law enforcement hall didn't take the initiative to attack, only blocking them here. While a group of juniors were making a ruckus here, the elders of High Heaven Pavilion were in another place, arguing with each other. In the Elder Hall, High Heaven Pavilion's Great Elder Wei Shitong, Second Elder Su Xianwu, Third Elder He Bei Shui, Fourth Elder Zhou Fei, and Fifth Elder Yu Zizai were all present. The 5 elders sat in 2 rows. On one side was Great Elder Wei Shitong, while 4th Elder Zhou Fei and 5th Elder Yu Zizai sat below. On the other side was 2nd Elder Su Xianwu and 3rd Elder He Bei Shui. This was the current elder faction of High Heaven Pavilion. Wei Zhuan and Sassafras, who had a conflict before, were kneeling side by side on the floor, reporting the events that had happened today. Sassafras spoke first. Every word he said was true. How he was blocked by Wei Zhuan, how he was provoked, how he was humiliated in the battle. No matter how big or small, he didn't have the slightest bit of emotion as he spoke. After the 5 elders finished listening, they didn't say anything. They only waited for Wei Zhuan to repeat himself. But when it came from Wei Zhuan's mouth, it was a bit different. At the beginning, it was no different from what Sassafras said, but after Yang Kai appeared, Wei Zhuan did his best to slander Yang Kai. His tongue flowed like a lotus flower, and with snot and tears, he said that Yang Kai had gone too far. He even used a secret artifact to break through his embroidered cloud chainmail and tried to kill him on the spot. The bitterness in his tone made those who heard feel sad and those who listened cry. Coupled with his exaggerated body language, the scene at that time was magnified 100 times in front of everyone's eyes. Bullshit. Sassafras was furious and couldn't help but curse. It's the truth. Wei Zhuan took advantage of the fact that Sassafras had been knocked unconscious and didn't see the situation at that time, so he insisted. Truth, my ass. You're just a piece of trash who makes trouble out of nothing. You don't even have a draft for lying. All of you shut up. The first elder slammed the chair heavily. Sassafras scolded his daughter-in-law in front of him. How could the first elder not be angry? But although he was angry, it wasn't good for him to teach the younger generation a lesson. Humph. The second elder coldly snorted. The first elder said, "The matter has been asked. What do you all think?" Although he asked this, his eyes were fixed on the second elder, Su Xianwu. Naturally, he wanted to ask for his opinion. Su Xianwu said, "What do you mean by what we think? Isn't this matter obvious? Why don't we just let the younger generation deal with the sparring between themselves? Why bother the Council of Elders?" The first elder smiled. The fourth elder, Zhou Fei, who had always followed the first elder's lead, said, "Second brother, what you said is wrong. At the beginning, this matter was indeed a competition between the younger generation. But after Yang Kai started the matter, the nature of the matter changed." How did it change? Under the eyes of everyone, he openly challenged Wei Zhuan. He didn't break the sect's rules. Wei Zhuan's own strength was not good enough, and he was defeated. Who can he blame? Su Xianwu was angry that his grandson was being humiliated. His tone was naturally not polite. The fourth elder said, if he really only challenged Wei Zhuan and defeated him, it would be understandable. But the truth is that during the battle, he took out a weapon and used it to break Wei Zhuan's embroidered cloud chainmail. The sect's rules say that when disciples fight, they cannot use weapons. That Yang Kai clearly broke this rule and should be punished. Su Xianwu coldly laughed. Fourth elder, the sect's rules aren't set like this, right? The sect leader hasn't come out for many years. Could it be that someone is so daring as to change the sect's rules? These words had a hidden meaning. The first elder's faction couldn't help but be moved. Wei Shitong said, "Oh? Then second junior brother, tell us, what are the sect's rules?" Su Xianwu coldly laughed. The sect's rules say that when disciples fight, they can't use weapons. They also can't use pills or secret treasures to strengthen themselves. Both sides can only use their own martial arts and their own fists and feet. First brother, this rule, I didn't say anything wrong, right? The first elder's face was cold as he nodded. You didn't say anything wrong. Chapter 75. That's right. Su Xianwu sneered. Why was Wei Zhuan wearing a defensive artifact when he was sparring with Sassafras? Isn't this breaking the rules of the sect? How should we deal with this? He didn't say how to deal with Yang Kai, but first tied Wei Zhuan together. This made the first elder's expression blank, not knowing how to answer. If Wei Zhuan really used his own ability to beat Sassafras, then Sassafras can only blame himself for not being skilled enough. Now that Wei Zhuan is using a defensive artifact to humiliate my grandson, brother, do you think I'm made of mud? Su Xianwu shouted angrily and slapped the armrest of his chair into pieces. Wei Shitong had no choice but to lower his stance and say, Second junior brother, please calm down. Wei Zhuan's defensive artifact was indeed bestowed upon him by me, but I only wanted to give him a bit of protection. Who would have thought that this child would be so bad and use a defensive artifact to spar with others. This is Wei Zhuan's fault. After saying this, he shouted angrily, Wei Zhuan, why haven't you apologized to your junior brother yet? Wei Zhuan was obedient and immediately cupped his fists towards Sassafras, junior brother. This time it was Brother Wei's fault. Brother will apologize to you. Junior brother, please be magnanimous. I hope you won't mind. Humph. Sassafras turned his head away and ignored him. But what could Su Xuanwu do now that things had come to this? The first elder said again, Wei Zhuan is wrong, but Yang Kai's mistake is even worse. Using a divine weapon, he almost killed Wei Zhuan. If it weren't for the intervention of the disciplinary hall disciples, Wei Zhuan would have already lost his life. This matter has a bad influence, and Yang Kai must be severely punished as a warning to others. Fourth elder Zhou Fei and fifth elder Yu Zizai nodded in agreement. Second elder sneered, why is it that Wei Zhuan broke the sect's rules and should apologize, but Yang Kai should be severely punished? Could it be that because Wei Zhuan is brother's grandson, he can enjoy some special privileges? If that's the case, then what prestige does Sky Tower elders have in front of the disciples? Wei Shitong said seriously, second junior brother's words are wrong. Kai Yang's mistakes and Wei Zhuan's mistakes could not be compared. Wei Zhuan only wore a defensive artifact to protect himself, not to harm others. On the other hand, Kai Yang's artifact was used to kill people. Which one is more important? Second junior brother should be able to clearly distinguish. Su Xianwu asked, brother, who saw Yang Kai A? Xianwu Wu. Brother, if he really had such a weapon, why didn't the law enforcement hall find it on him? Fourth brother, did the law enforcement hall under your command report on this? The disciplinary hall was under the jurisdiction of the fourth elder, Zhou Fei. Hearing this, he shook his head and said, although he didn't, there were so many people present at that time. They all saw with their own eyes that Kai Yang had a blood-red knife in his hand. If it wasn't for the power of that weapon, Wei Zhuan's embroidered cloud chainmail would not have been destroyed. Su Xianwu snorted. The yuan qi in his body revolved, and a long, thin sword suddenly burst out from his fingertips. This long sword was formed by the yuan qi. It flickered. Obviously, it was very powerful. If that's the case, does that mean I'm also holding a weapon? Su Xianwu looked coldly at the three people in front of him. This is only the use of yuan qi. How can it be considered a weapon? Fifth elder Yu Zizai slowly shook his head. Second brother, are you saying that Yang Kai, who is only at initial element level 3, can use yuan qi to such an extent? Fourth elder Zhou Fei looked at Su Xianwu with a smile. This was a joke. A cultivator could only use yuan qi when his strength reached the level of yuan qi. Only when the yuan qi in his body transformed into yuan qi could he condense such a substance. As for Kai Yang, he was just a trivial initial element third stage cultivator. The gap between him and the true element boundary was like heaven and earth. How could he have such ability? I didn't say that he could control yuan qi to such an extent. But brothers, did you forget about martial arts? Su Xianwu snorted. Impossible. Even if he used some special martial arts, a mere initial element level 3 cultivator would never be able to break through the defense of the embroidered cloud chainmail. Wei Shitong shook his head repeatedly. There is nothing impossible in this world. I can only say that brothers have been in Sky Tower for a long time and are obsessed with fighting for power. Your thinking is too rigid and can't keep up with the times. These words were a bit unpleasant to hear. Wei Shitong's face suddenly turned cold. Second junior brother, do you have to protect that Yang Kai? So what if I do? Su Xianwu suddenly stood up. This matter, to put it simply, is a competition between the younger generation. Why do you have to make a fuss about it? Fine. I'll satisfy your unreasonable demands. You can either punish both Yang Kai and Wei Zhuang. They both broke the rules of the Sky Tower. Don't let either one of them go. Or, this matter is over. No. Wei Shitong flatly refused. Even if it is as you said, that Yang Kai used martial arts to break through the defense of the embroidered cloud chainmail, this person is still young and his methods are bloody and cruel. In the future, when his cultivation reaches a certain level, he will definitely fall into the evil path. Our Sky Tower cannot tolerate such a person. He is only at the initial element level. How do you know that he will fall into the evil path in the future? Big brother, do you have the ability to predict the future? Second brother, fourth elder Zhou Fei was about to speak, but was interrupted by Su Xianwu's angry shout. Su Xianwu pointed at his nose and scolded, "Fourth elder, before the head went into seclusion, he appointed you to be in charge of the Law Enforcement Hall. In these past few years, have you seen what the Law Enforcement Hall has done? Where is fairness and justice? If the Law Enforcement Hall only suppresses dissidents and helps people fight for power, then what is the use of keeping it? Tomorrow, I will report to the head and have him remove the Law Enforcement Hall." Fuck, what is this? The fourth elder was scolded, but he couldn't refute, so his heart was filled with grievances. Second junior brother, what if I insist on expelling Yang Kai from Sky Tower? Wei Shitong asked coldly. You dare. Su Xianwu did not back down. Good. Then we will follow the rules set by the head and vote by a show of hands. Once the Elder Council passes, I think second junior brother won't have any objections, right? Haha, a show of hands? Su Xianwu laughed. Big brother, do you think I, Su Xianwu, am a fool? A show of hands. Is there even a need to vote? This won't do, that won't do. What do you want? Do you not even put the rules set by the head in your eyes? Wei Shitong also became angry. The Elder Hall was filled with smoke, and it looked like a fight was about to break out. Calm down, calm down. Come drink a cup of water. Drink a cup of water. Everyone calm down. The third elder, who had not spoken until now, tried to persuade them. The third elder had a calm temperament, and although he stood on the second elder's side, he generally did not participate in any fights. Moreover, his name was the same as his catchphrase, he chue shue, drink a cup of water. Whenever there was any friction between the elders, he would try to persuade them, but the results were very little. We won't drink. The great elder and second elder roared at the same time, glaring at each other, neither willing to accept the other. The third elder was helpless and could only drink by himself. While the elders were arguing, a person's voice suddenly came from outside the door. This disciple has something important to report to the several elders. The fourth elder frowned and quickly said, "Come in." When the elder council was discussing something, ordinary disciples did not dare to disturb them. For someone to come in at this time, it meant that something big had happened in the sect. The several elders knew the situation, so naturally they stopped arguing. After the disciple came in, the fourth elder Zhou Fei asked, "What happened?" Reporting to the elders, someone broke into the Law Enforcement Hall's forest prison and rescued the troublemakers Yang Kai and Li Yuntian. At the moment, they are confronting Brother Xia Hongchun at the entrance of the prison. What? The fourth elder stood up on the spot, and the other elders were even more shocked. Who is so bold, daring to break into the forest prison to rescue people? The High Heaven Pavilion disciple did not dare answer, only raising his eyes to look at Su Xianwu. Su Xianwu's heart skipped a beat, faintly having a bad premonition. The great elder took in all of this and more or less had a guess, so he calmly ordered, "Speak." It's Su Yin, senior sister Su." As soon as these words came out, the smile on the great elder's face suddenly became meaningful, and even the fourth and fifth elders gave Su Xianwu a strange look, while the third elder continued to drink his water. Su Xianwu's expression changed, gnashing his teeth in anger as he shouted, "Did you see clearly? Was the person who broke into the forest prison really Su Yin?" The disciplinary hall disciple trembled in fear and quickly said, "Disciple saw it clearly. I have heard of senior sister Su Yan's name. If second elder does not believe me, you can go and see for yourself." "No need." Su Xianwu waved his hand and closed his eyes. A moment later, he really did feel a cold chill coming from the forest prison. A chill that no one else in High Heaven Pavilion could feel except for Su Yin. This little girl really doesn't know what's important. She's too bold. Second junior brother, what do you think of this matter? The great elder smiled as he sipped his tea, waiting for Su Xianwu to withdraw his divine sense before calmly asking this question. At this moment, the great elder was confident. If the two sides were unwilling to back down just now, then there was now a breakthrough. What kind of place was the forest prison? It was an important place where High Heaven Pavilion imprisoned disciples who had committed crimes. Whether Yang Kai was in the wrong or not, as long as he was imprisoned, he had to stay there before the matter was settled. But now, Su Yin had rushed in and pulled him out. She had shown a moment of bravery, but had violated High Heaven Pavilion's rules. This was a big mistake. If this matter was not handled properly, even Su Yin would be punished. Wei Shitong knew that Su Xianwu would definitely not let Su Yin be implicated, so he had to make a concession. Naturally, the one he had to let go was the disciple named Yang Kai. Speaking of which, none of the 5 elders knew who Kai Yang was. The main reason why they had made such a big fuss about him was because they wanted to seize control of the High Heaven Pavilion. But now, the great elder felt that he could win. After this matter spread out, the disciples below would naturally think that the great elder's faction could influence High Heaven Pavilion's decisions and movements, thus achieving their goal. Su Xianwu's face was livid as he struggled for a long time before angrily saying, "Whatever eldest brother wants to do, will do as he pleases." Su Yin had become a hindrance, so how could Su Xianwu continue to play with him? In order to protect Su Yin from being punished, Yang Kai could only sacrifice himself. Where there is life, there is hope. There will always be a chance to get back at him in the future. Old Ghost. When Sassafras heard this, he immediately stared at Su Xianwu in disbelief. "What did you call me?" Su Xianwu was about to go crazy with anger towards this pair of siblings. "Grandfather, you can't do this." Sassafras quickly changed his words. "You have no right to speak in this matter." Su Xianwu glared at him fiercely. "Brother Yang saved my life. You can't just ignore him. If you don't, then you are ungrateful." "You shut up." Su Xianwu's face turned red. Although he was unwilling in his heart, he was now a fish on the chopping block. So what could he do? In order to prevent Sassafras from continuing, Su Xianwu sent out a finger, causing Sassafras to freeze like a statue, unable to speak or move, only able to watch and listen. "I'll deal with you when we get back." Su Xianwu snorted. "Haha." The great elder smiled with satisfaction. "Since second junior brother has no objections, then this matter is decided." Saying so, he looked at the disciples below and said, "Pass down the order. Trial disciple Yang Kai has repeatedly violated the sex rules. His methods are bloody and cruel, so the disciplinary hall will arrest him and bring him back to the forest prison. After the elders have a discussion, we will deal with him." As for Su Yin, since she is young and ignorant, and this is her first offense, we will not pursue this matter. Junior brothers, what do you think? How could the other elders have any objections? Go. The great elder waved his hand and a token flew out, landing in the disciple's hand. The elder's command, seeing the token is the same as seeing the person. With this token, Su Yin did not dare to act rashly. Yes. The disciplinary hall disciple received the order and quickly left. A moment later, a short scream suddenly came from the door, followed by the sound of a body falling to the ground. The elders' expressions changed, and just as they were about to get up to investigate, a voice came from outside. "Elders, you are quite awe-inspiring." The voice sounded, and a white-haired old man slowly walked in. In his hand was the disciplinary hall disciple who had just left, but now he had been knocked unconscious. Even the elder token had been snatched by this old man. The old man walked in front of the kneeling Wei Zhuan and Sassafras and casually kicked Wei Zhuan to the side. "Go, go, go. Don't block the way." Wei Zhuan flew out, screaming miserably. In the elder hall, the 5 elders' expressions were dignified. Wei Shitong narrowed his eyes at the newcomer. Treasurer Meng? The newcomer was the contribution hall's Meng Wuya. Speaking of this person, the 5 elders were all confused. More than 10 years ago, he suddenly came to High Heaven Pavilion. They did not know what relationship he had with the sect master, but he lived in the pavilion and took charge of the contribution hall. The elders had asked the sect master many times about this person, but every time the sect master did not give them any details, leaving them scratching their heads. However, the 5 elders knew that this person was an expert. Moreover, he was definitely not inferior to them. Fortunately, this person did not have any purpose and only spent his time in the contribution hall, so the elders did not pay any attention to him. But he did not expect that he would come to the elder hall uninvited today. Wei Shitong faintly felt that when facing this treasurer Ming, the pressure was even greater than when facing the sect master. Because of this, Wei Shitong did not dare to slight Treasurer Ming. Wei Shitong smiled and said, I don't know why Treasurer Ming has come to my elder hall. What business do you have? Meng Wuya did not answer and only smiled at Su Xianwu. Su Xianwu did not understand why he was being stared at. He thought to himself, there are no flowers on my face, so why are you looking at me? Do you think your decision is correct? Meng Wuya suddenly asked. What? Su Xianwu was surprised. Chapter 76. That's right. Su Xianwu sneered. Why was Wei Zhuan wearing a defensive artifact when he was sparring with Sassafras? Isn't this breaking the rules of the sect? How should we deal with this? He didn't say how to deal with Yang Kai, but first tied Wei Zhuan together. This made the first elder's expression blank, not knowing how to answer. If Wei Zhuan really used his own ability to beat Sassafras, then Sassafras can only blame himself for not being skilled enough. Now that Wei Zhuan is using a defensive artifact to humiliate my grandson, brother, do you think I'm made of mud? Su Xianwu shouted angrily and slapped the armrest of his chair into pieces. Wei Shitong had no choice but to lower his attitude and say, Second junior brother, please calm down. Wei Zhuan's defensive artifact was indeed bestowed upon him by me, but I only wanted to give him a little more protection. Who would have thought that this child would be so bad and use a defensive artifact to spar with others? This is Wei Zhuan's fault. After saying this, he shouted angrily, Wei Zhuan, why haven't you apologized to your junior brother yet? Wei Zhuan was very obedient and immediately cupped his fists towards Sassafras. Junior brother. This time it was Brother Wei's fault. Brother will apologize to you. Junior brother, please be magnanimous and don't take offense. Humph. Sassafras turned his head away and ignored him. But what could Su Xianwu do now that things had come to this? The first elder said again, Wei Zhuan is wrong, but Yang Kai's mistake is even worse. Holding a divine weapon, he almost killed Wei Zhuan. If it weren't for the intervention of the disciplinary hall disciples, Wei Zhuan would have already lost his life. This matter has a bad influence, and Yang Kai must be severely punished as a warning to others. Fourth elder Zhou Fei and fifth elder Yu Zizai nodded in agreement. Second elder sneered, why is it that Wei Zhuan broke the sect's rules and just apologized, but Yang Kai has to be severely punished? Could it be that because Wei Zhuan is eldest brother's grandson, he can enjoy some privileges? If that's the case, then what prestige does Sky Tower's elder have in front of the disciples? Wei Shitong sternly said, Second martial brother's words are incorrect. Kai Yang's mistakes and Wei Zhuan's mistakes could not be compared. Wei Zhuan was only wearing a defensive artifact to protect himself. He didn't want to harm. He Zhuan's is to protect others, while Yang's killing, he's killing people. Who is more important? Second junior brother should be clear. Brother. Xianwu said Wu. Right. Who? If he really had such a weapon, why didn't the law enforcement hall find it on him? Fourth brother, did the law enforcement hall under your command report on this? Fourth elder Zhou Fei was in charge of the disciplinary hall. He shook his head and said, although they didn't, there were so many people present at the time. They all saw Yang Kai holding a blood-red knife. This matter can't be faked. If it wasn't for the power of that weapon, Wei Zhuan's embroidered cloud chainmail wouldn't have been destroyed. Su Xianwu snorted. The yuan qi in his body revolved, and a slender, long sword suddenly burst out from his fingertips. This long sword was formed by the yuan qi. It flickered and was obviously very powerful. If that's the case, does that mean I'm also holding a weapon? Su Xianwu looked coldly at the three people in front of him. This is only the exquisite use of yuan qi. How can it be considered a weapon? Fifth elder Yu Zizai slowly shook his head. Second brother, do you mean that Yang Kai, who is only at the initial element 3rd level, can already use yuan qi to such an extent? Fourth elder Zhou Fei looked at Su Xianwu with a faint smile. This was a joke. A cultivator could only condense such a substance when his strength reached the yuan qi level, and the yuan qi in his body turned into yuan qi. Yang Kai was only at the initial element 3rd level. He was thousands of miles away from the yuan qi level. How could he have such ability? I didn't say that he could control yuan qi to such an extent. But brothers, did you forget about martial arts? Su Xianwu snorted. Impossible. Even if he used some strange martial arts, a mere initial element third-level cultivator would never be able to break through the defense of the embroidered cloud chainmail. Wei Shitong shook his head repeatedly. There is nothing impossible in this world. I can only say that brothers have been in Sky Tower for a long time and are obsessed with fighting for power. Your thinking is too rigid and can't keep up with the times. These words were unpleasant to hear. Wei Shitong's face suddenly turned cold. Second junior brother, do you really have to protect that Yongkai? So what if I do? Su Xianwu suddenly stood up. This matter, to put it simply, is a competition between the younger generation. Why do you have to make a fuss about it? Fine, I'll satisfy your unreasonable demands. Either we punish both Yongkai and Wei Zhuang. They both broke the rules of the Sky Tower, so we won't let either one of them go. Or, this matter will end here. No, Wei Shitong flatly refused. Even if it is as you said, that Yongkai used martial arts to break through the defense of the embroidered cloud chainmail, this person is still young and his methods are bloody and cruel. In the future, when his cultivation reaches a certain level, he will definitely fall into the evil path. Our Sky Tower cannot tolerate such a person. He is only in the initial element stage. How do you know that he will fall into the evil path in the future? Big brother, do you have the ability to predict the future? Second brother, fourth elder Zhou Fei was about to speak, but was interrupted by Su Xianwu's angry shout. Su Xianwu pointed at his nose and scolded, Fourth brother, before the head went into seclusion, he appointed you to be in charge of the Law Enforcement Hall. These past few years, have you seen what the Law Enforcement Hall has done? Where is fairness and justice? If the Law Enforcement Hall only suppresses dissidents and helps people fight for power, then what is the use of keeping it? Tomorrow, I will report to the head and have him remove the Law Enforcement Hall. Fuck, what is this? The fourth elder was scolded, but he couldn't refute, so his heart was filled with grievances. Second junior brother, what if I insist on expelling Yongkai from Sky Tower? Wei Shitong asked with a cold face. You dare. Su Xianwu did not back down. Good. Then we will follow the rules set by the head and vote by a show of hands. Once the Elder Council passes, I think second junior brother won't have any objections, right? Haha, a show of hands? Su Xianwu laughed. Big brother, do you think I, Su Xianwu, am a fool? A show of hands? Is there a need to vote? This won't do, that won't do. What do you want? Are you not even paying attention to the rules set by the head? Wei Shitong also became angry. The Elder Hall was filled with smoke, and it seemed that a fight was about to break out. Calm down, calm down. Come drink a cup of water, drink a cup of water. Everyone calm down. The third elder, who had not spoken until now, tried to persuade them. The third elder had a calm temperament, and although he stood on the second elder's side, he generally did not participate in any fights. Moreover, his name was the same as his catchphrase, He Chue Shue, drink a cup of water. Whenever there was any friction between the elders, he would try to persuade them, but the results were very little. We won't drink. The great elder and second elder roared at the same time, glaring at each other, neither willing to accept the other. The third elder was helpless and could only drink by himself. While the elders were arguing, a person's voice suddenly came from outside. This disciple has an important matter to report to the several elders. The fourth elder frowned and quickly said, Come in. When the elder council was discussing something, ordinary disciples did not dare to disturb them. For someone to come at this time, it was certain that something big had happened in the sect. The few elders knew the situation and naturally stopped their quarrel. After the disciple came in, fourth elder Zhou Fei asked, What is it? Reporting to the elders, someone broke into the Law Enforcement Hall's forest prison and rescued the troublemakers Yang Kai and Li Yuntian. At the moment, they are confronting Brother Xia Hongchun at the entrance of the prison. What? The fourth elder stood up on the spot, and the other elders were even more shocked. Who is so bold, daring to break into the forest prison to rescue people? The High Heaven Pavilion disciple didn't dare answer, only raising his eyes to look at Su Xianwu. Su Xianwu's heart skipped a beat, faintly having a bad premonition. The great elder took in all of this and more or less had a guess, so he calmly ordered, "Speak." It's Su Yin, senior sister Su. As soon as these words came out, the smile on the great elder's face suddenly became meaningful, and even the fourth and fifth elders gave Su Xianwu a strange look, while the third elder continued to drink his water. Su Xianwu's expression changed, gnashing his teeth in anger as he shouted, "Did you see clearly? Was the person who broke into the forest prison really Su Yin?" The disciplinary hall disciple trembled in fear and quickly said, "Disciple saw it clearly. I know senior sister Su Yan's name. If second elder doesn't believe me, you can go and see for yourself." "No need." Su Xianwu waved his hand, closed his eyes, and a moment later, he really did feel a chill coming from the forest prison. This kind of chill, in all of High Heaven Pavilion, except for Su Yin, no one else could have. This little girl really doesn't know what's important. She's too bold. Second junior brother, what do you think of this matter? The great elder smiled as he sipped his tea, waiting for Su Xianwu to withdraw his divine sense before calmly asking. At this moment, the great elder was confident. If the two sides were unwilling to back down just now, then there was now a breakthrough. What kind of place was the forest prison? It was an important place where High Heaven Pavilion imprisoned disciples who had committed crimes. Whether Yang Kai was in the wrong or not, as long as he was imprisoned, he had to stay there before the matter was settled. Now, Su Yin had rushed in and pulled him out. She had shown a moment of bravery, but had violated High Heaven Pavilion's rules. This was a big mistake. If it wasn't handled properly, even Su Yin would be punished. Wei Shitong knew that Su Xianwu definitely wouldn't let Su Yin be implicated, so he had to make a concession. Naturally, the one who was willing to let go was that disciple named Yang Kai. Speaking of which, none of the five elders knew who Kai Yang was. The main reason why they had made such a big fuss about him was because they wanted to seize control of the High Heaven Pavilion. But now, the great elder felt that he could win. After this matter spread, the disciples below would naturally think that the great elder's faction could influence High Heaven Pavilion's decisions and movements. Thus, their goal would be achieved. Su Xianwu's face was livid, and after struggling for a long time, he angrily said, "Whatever eldest brother wants to do, we'll do it." Su Yin had become a hindrance, so how could Su Xianwu be in the mood to continue arguing with them? In order to protect Su Yin from being punished, Yang Kai could only be sacrificed. Where there is life, there is hope. In the future, there will always be a chance to get back at him. Old Ghost. Sassafras heard this and immediately stared at Su Xianwu in disbelief. "What did you call me?" Su Xianwu was about to go crazy with anger at this pair of siblings. "Grandfather, you can't do this." Sassafras quickly changed his words. "You have no right to speak in this matter." Su Xianwu glared at him fiercely. "Brother Yang saved my life. You can't just ignore him. If you don't, then you're being ungrateful." "You shut up." Su Xianwu's face turned red. Although he was unwilling in his heart, he was currently on the chopping block, so what could he do? In order to prevent Sassafras from continuing, Su Xianwu sent out a finger, causing Sassafras to freeze like a statue, unable to speak or move, only able to watch and listen. "I'll deal with you when we get back." Su Xianwu snorted. "Haha." The great elder smiled with satisfaction. Since second junior brother has no objections, then this matter is decided. Finished speaking, he looked at the disciples below and said, "Pass down the order. Trial disciple Yang Kai has repeatedly violated the sex rules. His methods are bloody and cruel, so the disciplinary hall will arrest him and bring him back to the forest prison. After the elders discuss, we will deal with him." As for Su Yin, seeing that she is young and ignorant, and that this is her first offense, we will not pursue this matter. Junior brothers, what do you think? How could the other elders have any objections? Go. The great elder waved his hand and a token flew out, landing in the disciple's hand. The elder's order, seeing the token is the same as seeing the person. With this token, Su Yin did not dare to act rashly. Yes. The disciplinary hall disciple received the order and quickly retreated. A moment later, a short scream suddenly came from the door, followed by the sound of a person falling to the ground. The elder's expressions changed, and just as they were about to get up to investigate, a voice came from outside. "Elders, you are quite awe-inspiring." The voice sounded, and a white-haired old man slowly walked in. In his hand was the disciplinary hall disciple who had just left, but now he had been knocked unconscious. Even the elder's token had been snatched by this old man. This old man walked in front of the kneeling Wei Zhuan and Sassafras and casually kicked Wei Zhuan to the side. "Go, go, go. Don't block the way." Wei Zhuan flew out, screaming miserably. In the elder's hall, the 5 elders' expressions were dignified. Wei Shitong narrowed his eyes at the newcomer. Treasurer Meng? The newcomer was the contribution hall's Meng Wuya. Speaking of this person, the 5 elders were all confused. More than 10 years ago, he suddenly came to High Heaven Pavilion. They did not know what relationship he had with the sect master, but he lived in the pavilion and managed the contribution hall. The elders had asked the sect master many times about this person, but every time the sect master did not give them any details, leaving them scratching their heads. However, the 5 elders knew that this person was an expert. Moreover, he was definitely not inferior to them. Fortunately, this person did not have any purpose and only spent his time in the contribution hall, so the elders did not pay attention to him. But he did not expect that he would come to the elder hall uninvited today. Wei Shitong faintly felt that when facing this treasurer Ming, the pressure was even greater than when facing the sect master. Because of this, Wei Shitong did not dare to slight treasurer Ming. Smiling, Wei Shitong opened his mouth. "I wonder why Treasurer Ming has come to my elder's hall?" Meng Wuya did not answer and only smiled at Su Xianwu. Su Xianwu was puzzled by this stare, but he thought to himself, "There are no flowers on my face, so why are you looking at me? Do you think your decision is correct?" Meng Wuya suddenly asked. "What?" Su Xianwu was surprised. Chapter 77. Sacrificing Yang Kai to protect Su Yin. "Do you really think you're doing the right thing?" Treasurer Ming chuckled. Su Xianwu's expression became awkward. He thought the other party was here to criticize him. Meng Wuya continued, "This way, you can indeed protect Su Yin. But if Su Yin were to find out afterwards, how would she feel?" Su Xianwu's expression froze, sweat dripping down his forehead as he suddenly realized the seriousness of the situation. "If you really do this, you will only create a heart demon for Su Yin. She cultivates the ice heart secret art. Once a heart demon is born, you know the consequences better than anyone." Meng Wuya's faint voice sounded in Su Xianwu's ears, causing the latter to feel like he had been struck by lightning and regret. He had only cared about the immediate benefits and hadn't thought about what kind of terrible consequences he would bring to Su Yin in the future. Indeed, sacrificing Yang Kai this time could indeed protect Su Yin, but as long as she lived, she would definitely remember this matter and think that the reason she was safe was all because of Yang Kai's sacrifice. If this continued, her heart would definitely be tormented and her state of mind would become unstable. So how could her strength improve? "Many thanks for Treasurer Ming's reminder," Su Xianwu respectfully said. "Haha." Meng Wuya chuckled. "Even if I didn't say anything, you would have guessed. It's just a matter of time." Great Elder stood to the side with a gloomy expression. He had finally found an opportunity to defeat his second junior brother, but now that Treasurer Ming had appeared and lectured him, how could his second junior brother be willing to be manipulated by him? For Su Yan's future, he would definitely not compromise this time. Realizing this, Wei Shitong said with a gloomy expression, "Treasurer Ming, this is High Heaven Pavilion's Elder Hall. Without the permission of an elder, no one is allowed to set foot here. You should return to where you came from." Meng Wuya glanced at him and threw the elder's token back to him. His figure flashed, and he arrived at the highest position in the elder hall. Bold. Wei Shitong flew into a rage, and the other elders also looked at Treasurer Ming with a fierce expression. The reason was none other than that empty seat was reserved for the High Heaven Pavilion's sect master. Besides the sect master, no one else was qualified to set foot there. The few elders had been fighting openly and secretly for so many years. Even the great elder did not dare to covet that position. But now, an unknown contribution hall shopkeeper was actually standing in the main seat. How could the elders not be angry? This was contempt for the entire High Heaven Pavilion. "Hee, please calm down." Meng Wuya smiled faintly and stroked his beard. I'm here on behalf of your sect leader to pass on a message. You're here on behalf of the sect master? The 5 elders were visibly moved. Over the past 10 years, even the 5 great elders had found it extremely difficult to see the sect leader. Who would have thought that Meng Wuya would actually go and see him? And from what he said, it seemed that the sect leader had something to say about what happened today. What was going on here? Normally, even if the pavilion was in chaos, the sect leader would not intervene. So how could today's conflict between a group of juniors have alarmed the sect leader? What is this? Do you recognize it? Meng Wuya held a purple jade pendant in his hand. The sect leader's jade pendant. This jade pendant was the symbol of High Heaven Pavilion's sect leader. It was absolutely impossible to fake. It's good that you know. Meng Wuya smiled. Wei Shitong carefully asked, Dare I ask Treasurer Ming, what instructions does the sect leader have for us? Although the sect leader had not been involved in High Heaven Pavilion's affairs for more than 10 years, his prestige as a pavilion master had never weakened. Meng Wuya said, Your sect leader said that today's matter should be reduced to a small matter, and then reduced to nothing. This is a fight between juniors, so why are you shameless old men interfering? Don't be too shameless. Wei Shitong was stunned and stammered. Sect leader? Sect leader said that? Oh, the last part was my words. Your sect leader only said the first half. Meng Wuya lightly said. The 5 elders almost vomited blood in anger. This scolding was really strong. Unfortunately, they did not know how to respond. Also, since Yang Kai has already reached the initial element stage, then let him be promoted to an ordinary disciple. He can't always carry the status of a trial disciple. These words were also said by you? Wei Shitong asked with some worry. It was your sect leader who said it. Meng Wuya chuckled. The words have been passed on. You can do as you see fit. Finished speaking, he directly walked down from above and strode out of the elder hall. The 5 elders looked at each other and remained silent. Since the sect leader had already passed on the message, what else was there to discuss? It was not a big deal to begin with. Everyone was just using this as a pretext to make a fuss. Wouldn't it be easy to resolve it? Su Xianwu coldly harumphed. He flicked his sleeves and left. With the sect leader's orders, there was no need for him to fight anymore. He walked up to the palace, grabbed Su Mu, and disappeared. The second elder left, and the third elder Hebei Shui also left. Only the great elders faction was left in the hall. The 5th elder, Yuzizai, said, Big brother, something is wrong. Today's matter is not a big deal, but it actually alarmed the sect leader. Is there some mystery behind it? The 4th elder also nodded. Could it be that the sect leader wants to take this opportunity to tell us that he is still watching Sky Tower? This was also the great elder's guess, but he did not dare to admit it. Now that the 4th elder said it out loud, his heart also thumped. No matter what, this time we will take a step back. In the future, we will have to be more careful. The great elder muttered, however, we can test the sect master's thoughts and see what he is thinking. If he is willing to leave the mountain and take charge of High Heaven Pavilion, then we will support him. But if he is only acting on a whim, High Heaven Pavilion cannot continue like this. We should have someone who can take charge of it. Yes, but how should we test him? The 4th elder asked softly. Didn't the sect leader say that he would promote Yang Kai to an ordinary disciple? We can also do something about it. So that's how it is. The 4th elder and the 5th elder suddenly realized. In front of the forest prison, Su Yin and Xia Hongchun were confronting each other. No one dared to move. This situation had lasted for half an hour. Su Yan's body was becoming colder and colder. If it were not for Yang Kai's secret art restraining Su Yan's ice heart secret art, he would have already been frozen into an ice sculpture. While they were in a deadlock, a disciple of the law enforcement hall hurried over and shouted, The elder council has ordered, release them. What? Xia Hongchun heard this and was stunned. The law enforcement hall disciple bitterly said, Brother Xia, the several elders have said that today's matter ends here. No one is to pursue this matter further, otherwise the sect will punish them. Xia Hongchun glared at Yang Kai with resentment. He had been waiting for Su Yin to make a move, because as long as Su Yin made a move, He could find an opportunity to kill Yang Kai, but Su Yin did not give him this opportunity. Now that he heard the Elder Council's order, he naturally knew that there was no hope. Gnashing his teeth in grief and indignation, Xia Hongchen roared, "Release them!" Su Yin still supported Yang Kai and led Li Yuntian and the others forward, her expression as calm as an ancient well. Under the complicated gaze of Xia Hongchen, she slowly left. Chapter 78. The lively battle between the younger generation of disciples had come to an end in such a strange manner. Many people felt that it was completely inexplicable. This battle involved a lot of people. The disciplinary hall sent out hundreds of disciples just to stop Su Yin, which also proved her strength. The other main character of this incident, Yang Kai, was also known by many disciples. There were those who disdained him, those who envied him, and all kinds of comments. At this moment, Yang Kai was sleeping. After leaving the forest prison, Yang Kai fell asleep directly. This time, he was beaten up by 5 disciplinary hall disciples. Although the injuries he suffered were not fatal, they were quite serious. If not for the anger in his heart, Yang Kai would have collapsed long ago. Once the matter was settled, there was no more worry in his heart. Naturally, he could not hold on anymore. When he woke up, Kai Yang was surprised to find himself lying on an unfamiliar bed. His whole body was sore. Looking around, he found that this room was very simple and elegant. There wasn't much furniture in the room. It was very quiet and secluded. It was just like Su Yan's house in Black Wind Trade. He struggled to get up. Maybe the noise he made was heard outside. Not long after, Sassafras opened the door and appeared with a touched face. Li Yuntian and the others were all there. They followed Sassafras in and looked at Yang Kai with relief. "Brother Yang, how do you feel?" Sassafras came forward and helped him up. "I'm fine." Yang Kai slightly operated his Yuan Qi and found that there was no big problem. He just needed to rest for a few days. "Brother saved me again this time." "Sassafras, thank you." Sassafras thanked him clumsily. "Don't worry about it." Yang Kai waved his hand. "Oh right, these are the pills my old man gave you. These are all for healing and cultivation." Sassafras took out a dozen bottles and placed them on the bed. "Second elder?" Yang Kai was stunned. "Isn't this too much?" "Not much, not much. You were seriously injured this time. You should take care of yourself. Junior brother, please thank the second elder on my behalf." "There's no need to thank him." Sassafras waved his hand, a hint of anger appearing on his face. Su Xianwu also felt that he owed Yang Kai, so he gave him so many pills. After all, if it wasn't for Treasurer Meng bringing the sect master's orders at the last moment, Yang Kai might have been sacrificed by him. Sassafras was infuriated by the way he had handled the situation. This time, he asked for a lot of pills for Yang Kai. "Where's senior sister Su Yin?" Yang Kai looked around and asked. Sassafras's expression suddenly became strange. He had naturally heard about Yang Kai's feats from Li Yuntian and the others, and for a moment, his heart was filled with both fear and admiration. Ever since he was young, the feeling Su Yin gave him was not that of an older sister, but more like a mother. In front of Su Yin, Sassafras never dared to breathe loudly. But look at this senior brother Yang. How bold he is. He actually held his sister's hand in front of hundreds of people, and even said such bold words. After that, he was not killed by his sister. Not only was he not killed, but his sister even arranged for him to recuperate in her own room. This kind of thing was simply unimaginable. In the 2 days that Yang Kai was unconscious, Sassafras had also been thinking hard for 2 days, but he still couldn't figure out the mystery. Why? Why was this so? "AI, brother Yang." Sassafras sighed heavily and patted Yang Kai's shoulder. After a while, he said, "My condolences. Since ancient times, falling flowers have always been heartless. Brother, you need to be more open-minded." Yang Kai stared blankly for a moment, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He knew that Sassafras had misunderstood him, but he didn't explain and just asked, "Where is she?" This time, it was all thanks to her rescue at the critical moment. Otherwise, Yang Kai might have really used his Yang liquid to kill those disciplinary hall disciples. But facing those people, Yang Kai didn't have the confidence to kill them, so he didn't take the risk. But no matter what, once it came to that point, there was no turning back. After she settled you here, she went a black wind trade. Sassafras replied. Senior sister didn't say anything when she left? Yang Kai was suspicious. Originally, he thought that Su Yin must have something to say to him. After all, his actions at that time were really thoughtless. No. Sassafras slowly shook his head. Yang Kai secretly admired her. This senior sister's personality was really free and easy. When it came to her reputation, she didn't explain the twists and turns to anyone. The truth was clear. After chatting with Sassafras for a while, he left. Lying on the bed, Yang Kai didn't think too much about it. Things had already come to this, so there was no point in thinking about it. It just so happened that Sassafras had brought a lot of pills, so it was time to test whether his conjecture was correct or not. Half of these pills were for healing, while the other half were for cultivation. Overall, their value was definitely not cheap. Yang Kai first took a few healing pills, then silently circulated his true Yang secret art, helping the medicinal efficacies dissolve in his body while carefully feeling the changes in his body. Needless to say, the medicinal efficacies of these healing pills were quite remarkable. The medicinal efficacies flowed through his meridians and, in a short time, began to nourish and repair his wounds, reducing the pain in his wounds. However, Yang Kai was keenly aware that a part of the medicinal efficacies of these pills was actually circulating in his meridians and pouring into his bones. Perceiving this point, Yang Kai raised his eyebrows, becoming more and more certain of his conjecture. In order to verify whether this conjecture was correct, Yang Kai continued to eat all kinds of pills throughout the day. The final result showed that his unyielding golden skeleton could indeed absorb other types of energy that was not of the Yang attribute. As early as a few days ago when he broke through to the initial element realm, Yang Kai had this conjecture, but at that time there was no way to verify it. The true Yang secret art was undoubtedly a special and powerful secret art. It allowed him to condense Yang liquid without limit, and Yang liquid was also very lethal in battle. However, this powerful secret technique had an obvious limitation, and that was that the cultivation environment was too harsh. It was necessary to cultivate in Yang Qi's environment. Originally, Yang Kai was worried that his cultivation would be affected by the environment, but now the unyielding golden skeleton's tolerance allowed him to eliminate this worry. When there was Yang Qi, he could cultivate the true Yang secret art, but when there was no Yang Qi, there was no harm. The unyielding golden skeleton was not picky about its food and would accept any kind of energy. Under this two-pronged approach, his strength would not stop because of a lack of Yang attribute energy. This non-Yang attribute energy would be absorbed by the unyielding golden skeleton, and when it was time to fight, it would be fed back to him, increasing his fighting strength. Yang Kai faintly felt that there was an unclear relationship between his unyielding golden skeleton and the true Yang secret art, but as for what kind of relationship it was, he couldn't figure it out. When Yang Kai came back to his senses, he couldn't help but be shocked. He had unknowingly consumed a total of 5 bottles of pills, and each bottle contained 10 pills. In other words, he had eaten 50 pills. Even if these pills were only ordinary level pills, and their quality was not high, but if an ordinary person ate so many, their body would definitely not be able to withstand it. But right now, he was completely fine, and his injuries were much better. In the darkness, Yang Kai's 2 eyes flashed with a terrifying light, staring at the remaining 7 or 8 bottles of various pills, his heart surging with a crazy idea. Once this idea came out, he couldn't suppress it. After a long silence, Yang Kai finally decided to take a gamble. Reaching out, he picked up a bottle of pills, opened the lid, and poured it all into his mouth, regardless of whether it was a healing pill or a cultivation pill. Picking up another bottle, he poured it into his mouth. After swallowing all of the remaining pills, Yang Kai licked his lips in satisfaction. If others were to see this scene, they would be scared to the point of peeing their pants. Indeed, none of these pills were poisonous, but they couldn't be swallowed as if they were peas. It must be known that every medicine was 30% poisonous, and any kind of pill had a bottom line. Going too far was as bad as going too far. Not only would it not be good for the body, it would also endanger one's health, and even affect one's cultivation base and foundation. But in that short period of time, Kaiyang had swallowed 70 to 80 different pills in one go. Smacking his lips, Yang Kai felt his stomach bulging. Countless weak and gentle medicinal powers mixed in his stomach, and not long after, they converged into a frightening energy. Yang Kai was already prepared, and hurriedly circulated the true Yang secret art. The energy was like a dragon that had broken out of its cage, churning in his stomach. Yang Kai groaned, feeling as if his entire abdomen was being torn apart. The speed of the true Yang secret art's circulation suddenly increased a lot, as if it had an endless attractive force. The energy condensed from the 70 to 80 pills was pulled by this attractive force, slowly merging into his meridians. Yang Kai didn't dare to relax in the slightest, and used his heart to feel. This dragon-like energy was moving in his meridians, but it was incompatible with the true Yang Yuan Qi. Although the two were mixed with each other, they simply wouldn't merge. Not only that, but the direction in which these two kinds of energy flowed in his meridians was also completely different. The true Yang Yuan Qi circulated clockwise, while this huge medicinal effect circulated counterclockwise, colliding with each other endlessly. Every time they collided, the true Yang Yuan Qi would burn away the harmful substances in the medicinal effect, leaving behind the pure energy. Yang Kai's body flickered, and his skin turned red in an instant. Under his skin, every meridian seemed to be crawling with insects, swelling endlessly, looking very frightening. With the passage of time, the impurities in this huge amount of energy were removed, and little by little it entered his bones. At this moment, the unyielding golden skeleton seemed to have turned into a hungry fountain, swallowing large mouthfuls of energy. Under the severe pain, Yang Kai's senses were clearer than ever. It was as if his body had a pair of eyes. He could see how the true Yang Yuan Qi refined this energy, and he could also see how the unyielding golden skeleton received this refined energy, not missing a single trace. Faintly, Yang Kai recalled the several battles he had experienced after obtaining the unyielding golden skeleton. Blood splattered everywhere, and his body was in pain, but he was excited and bloodthirsty. Every time, accompanied by pain and an unyielding will, his strength would rapidly increase, and he would be able to defeat and behead opponents who were stronger than him. Especially the battle 2 days ago in the forest prison, where he was beaten up by 5 opponents who were far more powerful than him. Every scene was clearly presented in his mind. His blood began to boil once again, and his bones began to produce a familiar warmth. The energy that had been swallowed up by the unyielding golden skeleton was now being fed back to him, temporarily increasing his strength. Still not enough. Yang Kai felt that he was still missing something before he could truly comprehend the mysteries of the unyielding golden skeleton. I'm still missing a real battle. Thinking of this, Yang Kai suddenly jumped out of bed, gasping for breath as he pushed open the door. Looking left and right, he walked straight to the opposite room and kicked it open. Yang Kai estimated that Sassafras should be sleeping in the opposite room because he had heard some movement not long ago. If he wanted to find someone to fight, Sassafras would be a good candidate. Opening the door, Yang Kai immediately saw a smooth back. Just as he was about to blurt out a challenge, he swallowed it back down. Under the moonlight, by the windowsill, a graceful and delicate figure tugged at his heartstrings. White and smooth skin. Looking back, he could see thousands of people shaking. This scene was truly thrilling, and Yang Kai's 3 souls and 7 spirits almost flew out of his body. There was indeed someone in this room, but it wasn't Sassafras as Yang Kai had imagined, but it was Su Yin. Chapter 79. At this moment, Su Yin was only wearing a corset and panties. Her back was as white as jade, her buttocks were round, and her long and slender legs were exposed to the air. Large patches of snow-white skin were unreservedly imprinted in Yang Kai's eyes. Even though it was nighttime, Kaiyang could still see it clearly. The curve of her back was so perfect. Her slender shoulders exuded an alluring luster, and her slender waist was exquisite and graceful. It set off her moderately sized buttocks, and her sparkling and translucent skin made people's blood boil. The tight little panties around her buttocks were even more enticing. Because her skin was very white, and because her corset and panties were white, at first glance, one would think that she was completely naked. Perhaps because she heard the movement behind her, she crossed one hand in front of her chest, half of her body looking towards the door, while the other hand was holding a white nightgown. It seemed that she was in the middle of changing her clothes. The two people's eyes met in midair. Yang Kai's expression was stunned, and his gaze lingered on her full breasts. Su Yan's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of murderous intent, and her shoulders trembled slightly, because she saw two bloodshot eyes. These eyeballs were like a vicious wolf searching for food in the snow, or like a hungry ghost wandering around her pure and clean body without the slightest scruple. Not only that, but the man opposite her was also panting heavily, as if he was restless. Gotcha! With Su Yan as the center, a layer of frost quickly spread around her. Her dark red lips pursed, and her eyes were cold. Yang Kai finally realized that the situation was bad. His body turned, and his speed increased to the limit, quickly escaping the scene. His speed was very fast, and in less than 3 breaths of time, he had rushed out of the house. But before he could distinguish between north and south, a loud noise suddenly came from behind him. A large hole was broken open in the house, and a pure white figure flew out from inside, landing on Yang Kai's face. Her expression was cold, but there was also a trace of shame and anger. Yang Kai vigilantly retreated a few steps and put on a defensive posture. His mind raced, thinking about how to explain. But when he thought about it carefully, he knew that there was nothing he could say to defend himself. No matter what he said, it would be useless. No matter which girl had her body seen like this, she would not let it go easily. At this moment, Su Yan had already put on her clothes. She coldly stared at Yang Kai. Although she was so angry that she wanted to kill him, she knew that Yang Kai didn't do it on purpose. He probably didn't expect that she would return from Black Wind Trade and live in the room opposite his. This could only be said to be a misunderstanding. But even if it was a misunderstanding, Su Yan couldn't let it go so easily. She was waiting for an explanation that would calm her anger. However, the man who had seen her body didn't say a word. His eyes were still red, and a strong fighting spirit was emitted from his body. He didn't have the slightest bit of timidity or shame in front of her. Very well, I don't need your explanation. I just want to beat you up to vent my anger. An ice flower quietly appeared on Su Yan's fingertips, and with a flick of her finger, the ice flower spun and flew towards Yang Kai. As it flew, the ice flower began to grow. By the time it reached Yang Kai, the ice flower had already grown to the size of a wash basin, and its speed was extremely fast. Yang Kai didn't dare to be the slightest bit negligent. His true Yang Yuan Qi burst out and punched the ice flower. His fist hurt. The ice flower's ice attribute and the Yang attribute's true Yang Yuan Qi just so happened to counter each other. With this punch, the wash basin-sized ice flower was directly shattered. Asterisk so. Asterisk the shattered ice flower turned into countless icicles and shot towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai didn't have time to react. In an instant, more than a dozen wounds appeared on his body, dripping with blood. His body that had not yet fully healed looked even more shaky. Yang Kai roared in a low voice, and his unyielding golden skeleton once again played its role. A warm feeling spread throughout his body, and his strength slowly increased. Su Yan's beautiful eyes flashed with a trace of surprise. She had thought that she would be able to knock Yang Kai unconscious with this move, but she had not expected that he would actually be able to resolve it. Her figure flickered, and like a fairy descending from the heavens, Su Yan approached Yang Kai and pointed a finger at Yang Kai's shoulder. A cold feeling spread across his shoulder, causing Yang Kai to stagger back. Turning his head, he couldn't help but squint as he saw a snowy white frost appear on his shoulder. Moreover, this frost seemed to be condensing into an ice flower. Without the slightest hesitation, Yang Kai tore open his clothes and condensed a drop of yang liquid at his fingertips, directly sprinkling it on his shoulder. With a sizzling sound, Yang Kai's shoulder seemed to have been branded red by a hot iron. In an instant, it became extremely red, but the spreading frost was also quickly reduced by the drop of yang liquid, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Su Yan was even more surprised. She had never thought that Yang Kai would be able to use such an incredible method to resolve her cold ice strength. Her beautiful eyes filled with frost, Su Yin directly rolled up 1,000 layers of snow, her graceful body hidden in this wave of snow, directly rolling towards Yang Kai. Like the power of an avalanche, the momentum was tremendous, and Yang Kai was instantly wrapped in the wave of snow. A piercing chill rose from the bottom of his heart. Even though he cultivated the true Yang's secret art, at this moment, Yang Kai had the illusion that he was about to be frozen into an ice sculpture. He knew that senior sister Su Yin was angry. Although there was no murderous intent in her moves, it was clear that she wanted to teach him a lesson. This situation was exactly what Yang Kai had intended. Although his opponent was unreachable and he was unable to resist, he could use her to comprehend what he had just learned. This opponent was 1,000 times better than Sassafras. Inside the wave of snow, Su Yin repeatedly attacked Yang Kai, but he was unable to resolve it. A series of muffled groans rang out as blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. His body trembled as he struggled to resist the invasion of the cold. In this adversity, Yang Kai's feelings became clearer and clearer, and he suddenly gave up resisting, allowing Su Yin to attack him. What's wrong? What's wrong? The commotion had finally disturbed those who were sleeping soundly. Second Elder Su Xianwu was the first to rush to the scene, followed by Sassafras, Li Yuntian, and the others. When they saw the situation, everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. In the midst of the snowstorm, Yang Kai's upper body was bare. His eyes closed as he withstood Su Yan's fierce attacks. His seemingly thin body was like a ragged sack, being hit here and there by Su Yin, flying through the air but unable to land. See, Sassafras sucked in a breath of cold air. How did Brother Yang provoke elder sister? Is senior sister taking revenge for what happened a few days ago? Li Yuntian was horrified. That must be it, otherwise, with senior sister's temperament, how could she beat Brother Yang like this? Poor Brother Yang, his injuries haven't even healed yet he's met with such a disaster. Senior sister is too ruthless. The whispers of this group of people entered Su Yan's ears, which made her even angrier. Today, it was because Kaiyang had seen her body that she had decided to teach him a lesson, but from these people's mouths, it was as if she was the one with a small heart and a chicken's intestines. Su Yan's attacks became even more ruthless. Chapter 80. Su Xianwu squinted his eyes as he stared at the beaten Yang Kai, asking curiously, he seems to be comprehending something. What do you mean? Sassafras couldn't understand. Su Xianwu slowly shook his head and didn't explain. In his eyes, although Yang Kai's current situation was tragic, it was obvious that he was using this battle to comprehend something. Perhaps it was a kind of state of mind, or perhaps it was a martial skill. Wrapped in the cold air, Yang Kai's shivering body seemed to emit a blazing flame. Once this flame ignited, he would be reborn and enter a new level. If he could succeed, his future achievements would be extraordinary. Su Xianwu had never seen a cultivator who could enter such a deep level of comprehension when their strength was so low. It was simply a miracle. Grandfather, if elder sister continues to beat him like this, I'm afraid Brother Yang will die. Sassafras said anxiously. Su Xianwu shook his head. Yin knows how to control her strength. There is no killing intent in her moves. She is not trying to take Yang Kai's life. Saying so, he muttered to himself, strange. Why would Yin hit him? Even with Su Xianwu's age, he couldn't imagine what had happened just now to make Su Yin so angry. The snowstorm receded as Su Yan's body floated in the air while Yang Kai was thrown directly to the ground. His clothes were tattered, and his exposed skin was blue and purple from frostbite. As he neared the ground, Kaiyang suddenly rolled over and landed firmly on the ground. Opening his eyes, he looked up. Under the star field, Su Yan's white robes fluttered in the wind, like a fairy descending to the world. Behind her, a full moon hung, her robes fluttering in the night wind. His otherworldly and noble temperament gave birth to a sense of humility for no reason. Asterisk Kacha. Asterisk with a series of cracking sounds. Yang Kai's entire body was quickly covered in a layer of frost before a huge block of ice wrapped around him. The block of ice had sharp edges and was crystal clear. Through the layer of ice, every strand of Yang Kai's hair could be seen clearly. Even his expression was stiff on his face. Su Yin didn't say anything, only giving Yang Kai a deep look before turning around and returning to the room. The beautiful scene from just now was left in Yang Kai's eyes. Guard him. When the ice breaks, he will succeed. Su Xianwu solemnly instructed Sassafras. Sassafras nervously, sweating, "Grandfather, won't Brother Yang freeze to death?" Xianwu laughed. "He won't. This is his good fortune." Saying so, he turned around and left. Only then did Su Mu and a group of people quietly walk forward, surrounding the huge ice block one by one and beating it incessantly. However, this was condensed by Su Yan's ice force, so how could they destroy it? This is bad. This is bad. Brother Yang has not recovered from his injuries, and now he is frozen inside. I'm afraid his little brother will freeze to death. What should we do? As soon as he finished speaking, he was glared at by Sassafras. Didn't you hear what my grandfather said? This is Brother Yang's good fortune. Don't move. If you break this ice, you may hurt Brother Yang. Let's just stay here and guard. Oh. The group nodded in response. After guarding until 5 o'clock, the block of ice was still motionless. Yang Kai, who was frozen inside, was like a living corpse. His breathing was weak, but his eyes were fixed on the spot where Su Yin disappeared. Sassafras and the others thought about it and decided to leave 2 people here to guard while the others did what they were supposed to do. This situation lasted for 3 full days. In front of a small building, there was a living person sealed inside an ice sculpture. The scene was as strange as it could be. Sassafras and the others did not know how many shifts they had taken, but every time they left 2 people here to guard, there was still no sign of the ice breaking, causing them to be so anxious that the corners of their mouths started to blister. During these 3 days, Yang Kai did not feel the passage of time at all. Although his eyes were always open, he could not see anything. His mind was completely immersed in enlightenment, feeling the movement of the bones in his body, feeling the warmth brought about by his unyielding willpower, feeling how his strength grew bit by bit after this warmth spread throughout his body. The ice left behind by Su Yin provided him with a very good space to comprehend. The ice force contained in the ice was constantly eroding his body, penetrating his meridians. This kind of ice force was not something that the current Yang Kai could resist, but he was able to resist every time, relying on the wonders of the unyielding golden skeleton. After resisting hundreds and thousands of times, Yang Kai understood the mysteries of the unyielding golden skeleton and understood why it could increase his strength. The small burning fire seed in his body expanded little by little until today. After understanding the mysteries of the unyielding golden skeleton, the fire seed instantly ignited, emitting a monstrous heat wave from his body. Suddenly, a cracking sound rang out. Sassafras and Li Yuntian, who were standing guard at the side, were alarmed by this movement and quickly turned their heads to look. What they saw was that the huge ice cube had actually cracked open one after another, densely packed like a spider's web. Brother Yang is coming out, Sassafras declared in surprise. Sure enough, as soon as his voice fell, the ice cube exploded, turning into specks of light that disappeared into the air. Yang Kai stood in place, covered in blood. His upper body was still somewhat thin, but his brows were furrowed, as if he was deep in thought. Sassafras and Li Yuntian didn't dare to disturb him, so they quietly waited. After a long while, the worry on Yang Kai's face suddenly disappeared. He smiled and said, "If that's the case, then I'll call you Unyielding Will." Unyielding Will was something that Yang Kai had comprehended in these 3 days. It was a mysterious martial skill that couldn't be used to attack, but could be used to strengthen one's body. This was a martial skill that he had comprehended from the unyielding golden skeleton, and was closely related to the unyielding golden skeleton. Only when he was in adversity and had an unyielding will, could he activate this mysterious martial skill. Once he used it, the unyielding golden skeleton would provide him with energy, temporarily increasing his strength. Although he had unintentionally activated the unyielding will before, but for a martial skill, knowing its principles and not knowing its principles made a huge difference. It could be said that until now, Yang Kai had truly mastered this mysterious martial skill, a martial skill that belonged only to him. It wouldn't be like before, where once he was injured or stimulated, he would involuntarily activate the unyielding will. Although the harvest was huge, Yang Kai was still somewhat unsatisfied. This was because he could feel that the unyielding golden skeleton still hid some other mysteries that he hadn't seen through yet. He had to say that it was a pity. Yang Kai comforted himself. There's still a long way to go. There's no need to rush. Only when Yang Kai started to move did Sassafras and Lien Tian dare to step forward and ask with concern, "Brother Yang, are you okay?" "Me? Very good." Yang Kai moved his arms and legs, and suddenly found that the injuries he had suffered a few days ago were all healed. "You better put on your clothes, otherwise when sister comes back and sees you, she'll beat you up again." Sassafras was worried. Chapter 81. In the courtyard of Sky Tower's second elder, Yang Kai was wolfing down food while Sassafras and the others sat beside him and chatted with him. Of course, they were also inquiring about why Su Yin had dealt such a heavy blow to Yang Kai that night. But Yang Kai didn't dare to say anything. "That's right. Wei Zhuan didn't bother you again, right?" Yang Kai changed the topic. Ever since he left the forest prison that day, he had been unconscious and frozen in ice. Yang Kai really didn't know how the sect dealt with this matter. That matter is already in the past. In the pavilion, from the elders to us younger disciples, no one will bother with that matter anymore. Sassafras replied, then suddenly looked at Yang Kai with a puzzled expression. "Actually, the reason why we are safe and sound this time is not because of my grandfather." "HM?" Yang Kai raised his head. "Isn't it because of the second elder's actions?" "No." Sassafras slowly shook his head, and somewhat embarrassedly told Yang Kai about what happened that day in the Elder Hall, then said, "Guess who came when I was stopped by my grandfather?" "Who?" "You would never have guessed that it was actually Treasurer Ming from the Contribution Hall. He brought the sect leader's jade pendant and also the sect leader's instructions. That's how he managed to turn the matter into a small one." "Old Man Ming?" Yang Kai was stunned. "If it wasn't for him, Brother Yang, I'm afraid you would have been severely punished by the first elder," Sassafras said with a face full of guilt. Yang Kai smiled freely. "Junior brother, don't take it to heart." Sassafras repeatedly bowed. "Brother, I know that the master is magnanimous. I'll apologize to you on behalf of my grandfather. Old Man Ming really didn't do the right thing this time." Yang Kai didn't take it to heart. When the upper echelons fought, they would always use their disciples as chess pieces. This was human nature. Sassafras continued, "Treasurer Ming's origin is mysterious. Old Man Ming also said that his strength is unfathomable. I just don't know why he got involved in this matter, and why he even has a relationship with the sect leader." Yang Kai pondered. Old Man Ming is the kind of person who doesn't take advantage of opportunities. If there is no benefit, he wouldn't do such a thing. He must have a motive. But no matter what, it is a fact that he helped us. "Senior brother, you're right. We're waiting for you to join us," Sumu said. "Let's go now." There was no time to lose. A group of people majestically charged towards the Contribution Hall. Inside the Contribution Hall, Treasurer Ming was not sleeping, but instead was sitting behind the counter, smiling at Yang Kai's group as they entered, as if he had been waiting for them. "Grandpa." In the past, this second generation had always called Treasurer Ming Old Man Ming. But today, Sassafras didn't dare to be presumptuous in front of him. Treasurer Ming smiled. "You're a good boy." He. Sassafras was embarrassed. "You're here to thank me?" Treasurer Ming looked at everyone. The group nodded. "That's enough. Little Yang Kai stays. The rest of you can leave."
"Yes."
Sumu and the others didn't dare to hesitate. Before the soles of their feet had even warmed, they hurriedly bowed and retreated. After leaving the Contribution Hall, everyone understood that the reason Treasurer Ming had helped them was all because of Kai Yang. Otherwise, why would he leave Senior Brother Yang behind? But why did he help Brother Yang? Inside the Contribution Hall, Yang Kai was also puzzled. "Treasurer Ming, what do you want from me?" He didn't beat around the bush. Instead, he directly asked the question in his heart. Ming Wuya laughed and walked out from behind the counter. With his hands behind his back, he walked in circles around Yang Kai. After walking a few circles, he raised his head and asked, "What do you think I want from you?" "I don't know." Yang Kai rolled his eyes. If I knew, why would I ask you? Meng Wuya continued, since you're so honest, I won't play dumb with you. You should be a person who knows how to repay kindness. This time, I'm helping you out because I want you to do me a favor. Yang Kai frowned. How can I help you? Treasurer Ming's strength was profound. If he couldn't do it, how could he? As if he saw through Yang Kai's worries, Treasurer Ming smiled. Don't worry, there's no danger. As long as you meet the conditions, not only will there be no danger, there will also be great benefits waiting for you. Yang Kai was keenly aware that when Treasurer Ming said that last sentence, there was a hidden pain on his face. You want me to meet the conditions to help you? Yang Kai was even more puzzled. He had never seen such a person who was so picky when asking for help. Treasurer Ming said, not only do you have to meet my conditions, you also have to satisfy the other person. That's too troublesome. I won't do it. Yang Kai was about to leave. Don't. Treasurer Ming was anxious. It wasn't easy to find someone who met his conditions. How could he let him go like this? Little Yang Kai, you can't be like this. You should know that a drop of water should be repaid with a spring of water. No matter what, this old man is your savior. How can you let me down? Then you don't have to beat around the bush. Tell me what you want. If I can help, I will. If I can't, then you can find someone else. Give me your hand. I want to check the yuan qi in your body. Treasurer Ming didn't dare to keep him in suspense. Yang Kai suspiciously looked at him and stretched out his hand. He believed that Treasurer Ming wouldn't do anything to harm him. Meng Wuya stretched out 2 fingers and placed them on Yang Kai's wrist. His face was serious as he examined it. His expression kept changing. At first, it was indifferent, but then it changed to a serious expression. His expression changed so quickly that it made people dumbfounded. Good, good, good. What a pure yang qi. Meng Wuya retracted his hand. He was overjoyed. Does this have something to do with the yuan qi I've cultivated? Yang Kai guessed. Of course it has something to do with it. Meng Wuya nodded. Why else would I look for you? Little Yang Kai, I want to ask you a question. You must answer me honestly. What question? Meng Wuya's expression suddenly became awkward. His eyes drifted around as he carefully considered his words. After a long time, he nervously and expectantly asked, You're still a virgin, right? Because he was too nervous, Meng Wuya stretched his neck and put his face in front of Yang Kai. His 2 eyes stared straight at him. Yang Kai quickly retreated 2 steps, then 3 steps. Goosebumps appeared all over his body. He couldn't help but shiver. He vigilantly asked, What are you doing? This old man, did he have some kind of special fetish? This question was too nonsensical. Why did you run so far? This old man won't eat you. Meng Wuya chased Yang Kai until he was forced into a corner. He mysteriously asked in a low voice, Are you still a virgin or not? What do you want? Yang Kai put on a, if you dare to mess around, I'll take you down with me posture. What do you think this old man is? Meng Wuya saw Yang Kai's appearance and finally woke up. He couldn't help but blush. He quickly retreated a few steps. It's not what you think, you brat. How can you be so dirty? Chapter 82. I don't know who's the dirty one, staring at other girls' buttocks and thighs all day long. Yang Kai mercilessly retorted. You're talking about this again. Meng Wuya was scared and looked around. Not knowing who heard him, he cupped his hands and said, Young Master Yang, Uncle Yang, let's not talk about this again, okay? This old man just wants to see how they're developing, not do anything to them. Seeing him admit defeat, Yang Kai didn't continue to pursue the matter and said seriously, What you want me to help you with, is it related to this? Yes. Speaking of business, Meng Wuya's expression became serious. So little Yang Kai, you have to tell me the truth. Have you ever had sex with a girl? Cough, cough, huh? This is a serious matter. Yang Kai's face was embarrassed. He sniffed and said, I haven't. Good. Meng Wuya's heart finally dropped. Very good. Little Yang Kai, you're a good man. In this era, many men at the age of 14 or 15 had intimate contact with women. The children of poor families didn't need to be mentioned. They started their families early in order to continue the family line. The children of rich families didn't need to be mentioned. They didn't even need to be mentioned. They already had several maids. Only a cultivator, as long as they weren't too lustful, would lose their virginity very late. Some cultivators would never have intimate contact with the opposite sex. In the eyes of a cultivator who pursued cultivation and strength, the prosperity of the world was just a dream. After 100 years, a beautiful woman would be nothing more than a skeleton. Only the peak of the martial path was their goal. Once they were strong, would they be afraid of not being able to find a woman? Among the male disciples of Sky Tower, there were many 15 to 16 years old who wandered around the brothels. Although Meng Wuya believed that Yang Kai wasn't that kind of person, he still had to be cautious and ask clearly. In other words, I can help you? Yang Kai looked at Meng Wuya. If you can't, then no one in the world can. You've passed my test. Meng Wuya was in a good mood and couldn't help but laugh. Then you just said that you want another person to be satisfied? Yang Kai asked doubtfully. Meng Wuya's smile disappeared, and his expression became strange. He nodded and said, yes, we have to satisfy her. If she isn't satisfied, then this matter can't be done. To tell you the truth, a few months ago, I found someone who fit the criteria, but she wasn't willing, so I could only drop the matter. Forget it. I'll take you to see her. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. After talking for a long time, Meng Wuya didn't know how to continue. He could only sigh faintly and lead Yang Kai outside. Yang Kai hurriedly said, let me say this first. I'm only here to help you, to thank you for your kindness. If that person wants me to do something too excessive, I won't agree. Smelly brat. Meng Wuya was in a gloomy mood, so when he heard Yang Kai's excuses, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. He thought that if this brat knew how to help, then he would definitely agree. But now he's acting like a good boy in front of me. As he followed Meng Wuya, Yang Kai discovered that the two of them were actually heading towards the coiling dragon stream. Moreover, this direction was where he usually cultivated. Why would he want to go there? When he usually cultivated, he didn't see anyone there. The coiling dragon stream was a dangerous place, so very few people would go there. When they were about 100 feet away from his usual cultivation spot, Meng Wuya suddenly stopped and pointed in front of them. Look there. Yang Kai looked up and couldn't help but be startled. At the place where he usually cultivated, there was actually a woman standing in front of the 3 sun fruit trees that he planted. She was wearing a light green dress. He didn't know what she was thinking about, but she was actually in a trance. Her body didn't move at all, and she allowed the wind to blow as her clothes fluttered. She was wearing a veil, so people couldn't see her face clearly. Her forehead was adorned with a blue gem, which made her look so elegant and refined. She had a slender figure that seemed to be too weak to stand up to a gust of wind, but her figure was graceful. Her watery eyes were full of innocence, making her look like a child who hadn't grown up yet. Seeing her, Yang Kai remembered that night, under the moonlight, the sleeping beauty on his bed. It's her. Yang Kai's eyes suddenly softened. You know her? Meng Wuya suddenly became alert. His precious disciple had told him that she had never spoken to Yang Kai before. How was it that when it came to Yang Kai, the two of them already knew each other? The one who wants my help is her? Yang Kai looked at Meng Wuya and asked. Yes. Meng Wuya nodded. I'll help. Contrary to Treasurer Meng's expectations, Yang Kai didn't hesitate and directly agreed. Meng Wuya had asked him to prepare a speech, such as using reason to persuade with emotion, enticing with benefits, threatening with force. All of it was useless. Meng Wuya's heart suddenly had a bad feeling, and he suddenly regretted looking for Yang Kai. Why did you agree so quickly? Old man Meng was vigilant. Wasn't it you who wanted my help? Yang Kai frowned and looked at Meng Wuya with a puzzled expression. This old man's attitude had changed too quickly. I did want your help, but you agreed too quickly. Meng Wuya waved his hand. You have to give me an explanation. Then do you want my help or not? Yang Kai was impatient. Of course I want it. Then why are you still asking? Isn't it a good thing that I agreed? That's right. Wasn't it a good thing that he agreed so quickly? Why did he feel that something was wrong? Meng Wuya was stunned. Yang Kai walked over step by step. The sound of his footsteps startled Xianing Chong, who was deep in thought. When she came back to her senses, Yang Kai had already arrived by her side. Xianing Chong was clearly shocked and looked at Yang Kai helplessly. She couldn't help but panic. She had met with him twice at night, and both times something embarrassing had happened, so how could Xianing Chang remain calm? Senior sister Xia. Yang Kai looked at her. Why are you here? I came to help you look after the fruits. You haven't been here for a few days, so I was afraid that these fruits had been picked by someone else. Xianing Chang quickly explained. Yang Kai turned his head to look, and found that the fruits on the 3 trees he had planted before were all gone, leaving only the last tree with 3 fruits that were about to ripen. These are your fruits. I refined them into pills. As Xianing Chang spoke, she took out a small bottle and handed it to Yang Kai. Yang Kai took it and found that there were 9 red pills rolling around in the bottle, emitting a strong yang energy. They were very pure, without any other ingredients mixed in. But how could a single 3 sun fruit be used to refine pills? Senior sister knew that I was cultivating here? Yang Kai looked up and asked. If not, why would she help him look after the 3 suns fruit tree? Xianing Chang avoided his gaze. I saw it by accident. So the person that night was you. Yang Kai smiled, and his heart warmed. Chapter 83. That night, when Yang Kai was breaking through to the initial element realm, a masked woman had ambushed him. At first, he thought that she was trying to kill him, but in the end, he realized that wasn't the case. She only wanted to help him. Otherwise, with her strength, he wouldn't have been able to resist. At that time, Yang Kai had some doubts. Now, he had finally confirmed the masked woman's identity. At this moment, Yang Kai's heart was filled with gratitude towards this senior sister Xia. Old Man Ming stepped out at the wrong time and stood between Kai Yang and Xianing Chang. Like a mother hen protecting her chicks, he protected his precious disciple behind him. Yang Kai looked at him suspiciously. You know each other? Meng Wuya snorted, his face full of pride and satisfaction. This is my disciple. Your disciple? Yang Kai's jaw almost hit the ground. His eyes kept moving between Xianing Chang and Meng Wuya, full of disbelief. Who would have thought that such an unreliable person like Treasurer Ming would actually accept a disciple? Wasn't this leading to the wrong disciple? You two know each other? Meng Wuya looked at Yang Kai. Nope. Xianing Chang's answer was very simple and decisive. While speaking, she hid behind Meng Wuya and waved her small hands. Understanding her intentions, Kai Yang chuckled. We don't really know each other. It's just that senior sister helped me out a little that night. Meng Wuya nodded slightly. Xianing Chang had also told him about this matter. It was because of that night that Xianing Chang felt that Yang Kai's yang qi was very pure. Treasurer Ming, what does senior sister Xia want me to help with? Can you tell me? Yang Kai's expression became serious. Since it was Xianing Chang's matter, Yang Kai naturally wouldn't refuse. Meng Wuya didn't answer. He just looked at his precious disciple and asked, Can he do it? Xianing Chang's delicate earlobes suddenly turned red. She lowered her eyes, and her long eyelashes trembled. After a long while, she nodded imperceptibly. Seeing her like this, Meng Wuya couldn't help but sigh. Fine, fine, fine. We don't have much time left. He's the one. Kai Yang stood to the side and watched, but didn't ask anything. After a while, Meng Wuya suddenly asked seriously, Yang Kai, do you know that there are some people in this world who are born different from the rest? These people are born with abilities that ordinary people can't see through. Yang Kai's expression turned serious as he whispered, Treasurer Ming, are you talking about those with special constitutions? That's right. Meng Wuya nodded. These people are blessed by the heavens and are also favored by the heavens. Some people's constitutions are suitable for cultivation. Some people's constitutions are easy to heal after being injured. Some people's constitutions are suitable for battle. There are all kinds of strange constitutions, but no matter which one it is, as long as they have a special constitution, they can reach heights that no one else could ever hope to reach in their territory. Ordinary people like us are very envious of people with special constitutions. However, people with special constitutions are very rare. In a million people, there might not even be one. Little Yang Kai, you're lucky. Today, I'll let you see someone with special constitutions. Yang Kai's expression turned cold. He looked at Xianing Chang, who was standing behind Meng Wuya with surprise. Could it be that senior sister Xia? Haha. Meng Wuya's face was filled with pride as he smiled happily. He nodded slightly. That's right. Ning Cheng's constitution is different from ordinary people. Yang Kai's emotions fluctuated. He never thought that this easily shy and timid senior sister would be such a lucky person. What kind of constitution does senior sister have? Yang Kai couldn't help but be curious. Meng Wuya didn't answer. Instead, he muttered to himself for a moment before opening his mouth. The fruits on this tree have just ripened. Disciple, go and pick them. Ning Cheng followed his instructions and walked to the last 3 suns fruit tree. Then, she gently plucked the 3 fruits from the tree. Yang Kai didn't interrupt. He felt that his doubts would be answered soon. Disciple, let him see your abilities. Meng Wuya chuckled. Xianing Cheng nodded slightly. She walked in front of Yang Kai and stretched out her delicate hand. That hand was white and slender. In her delicate palm were the 3 suns fruits that had just been plucked. Junior brother, please take a look. Xianing Cheng said softly. She slightly circulated the yuan qi in her body. Yang Kai's expression suddenly became shocked. This was because he discovered that as Xianing Cheng circulated her energy, the 3 suns fruits in her small hand actually overflowed with red energy. That was the yuan qi contained within the fruits. Yang Kai practiced the true yang tactics, so he was very sensitive to the yuan qi. Naturally, he could feel that the energy within the 3 suns fruits was being crazily extracted. But how did this happen? The energy that leaked out from the 3 suns fruit gathered in front of Xianing Cheng. No matter how strong the wind blew, it did not disperse. In less than 10 breaths of time, the 3 suns fruits had lost their original color and luster. Not only that, the 3 suns fruits quickly dried up. When the wind blew, they turned into fine powder and dissipated into the air. Xianing Cheng moved again. She held the condensed yang yuan qi in one hand, while her other hand danced in the air. Following her movements, the yang qi under the coiling dragon stream rose into the air like pillars of water. They all rushed towards Xianing Cheng. She casually grabbed a strand of energy and threw it into the red mass of energy in front of her. Her hands moved faster and faster. Each grab was able to grab the yang qi that rushed out of the coiling dragon stream and merge it into the red mass of energy in front of her. As time passed, the red mass of energy in front of her didn't become much bigger. Instead, it became smaller and smaller. However, the amount of yang yuan qi it contained was increasing. After a while, Xianing Cheng finally stopped grabbing the yang yuan qi from the coiling dragon stream. Her 2 hands pressed the red mass of energy towards the center. Her 2 palms quickly closed together. When she opened her palms again, there were 3 bright red pills in her hands. The pills were round and attractive. The pill halo and pill veins were clearly visible. Kai Yang was already dumbstruck. The scene in front of him could only be described as godly. There was no other way to describe it. At this moment, Yang Kai finally understood how senior sister Xia had given him the bottle of pills. All of them were refined this way. However, wasn't this a bit too simple and easy? Alchemists were rare to begin with. When refining pills, there was also a risk of failure. Furthermore, when alchemists were refining pills, they also needed special tools, such as a medicinal furnace and furnace fire. However, this senior sister Xia in front of him had only used her hands. Other than the 3 suns fruit, she didn't use any other materials. Yet, she was able to easily refine 3 pills. For you. Xianing Cheng extended her hand in front of Yang Kai. Yang Kai took a deep breath and calmed the shock in his heart. He picked up the 3 pills and carefully sensed them. He found that each of these pills contained more yang yuan qi than a single 3 suns fruit. After all, when refining these 3 pills, Xianing Cheng had borrowed the yang qi from the coiling dragon stream. Senior sister, if you were to refine pills, I'm afraid that the people from Medicine King Valley wouldn't have any business. Yang Kai smiled bitterly. He had never seen anyone who could simplify refining pills to such an extent. Chapter 84. Even those in Medicine King's Valley who claim to be alchemists for a living may not have the same level of attainments as Xianing Cheng. What kind of physique does senior sister have? Yang Kai turned his head and asked. Meng Wuya replied in a deep voice, Sacred Spirit Medicine Body. It's related to alchemy? Correct. Meng Wuya nodded. This physique is very special and may not appear even once in 1,000 years. Those who possess the sacred spirit medicine body will not suffer from any side effects when taking pills. You should also know that every medicine has a side effect. Although there are many pills that can assist in cultivation and even increase a person's strength, there is still a limit. However, there was a limit to how many dawn a person could take. The sacred spirit medicine body was different. It could be said that the sacred spirit medicine body was the best medicine furnace in the world. Once the dawn entered the stomach, anything harmful could be refined. This senior sister of yours has only cultivated for 5 years and has already reached the peak of separation and reunion boundary. If I had not deliberately suppressed her cultivation, she would have already broken through to Yuan Qi boundary. Yang Kai was shocked. 5 years to reach the peak of separation and reunion boundary? Even Xia Hongchun was only at this level. How long had he cultivated? More than 10 years? Moreover, this was after suppressing her cultivation. If she had not suppressed it, wouldn't it mean that she was even more powerful than Su Yan? Yang Kai blushed with shame. Compared to this senior sister, the difference was like heaven and earth. The one in front of him was the greatest genius of High Heaven Pavilion. However, senior sister Xia being able to grow so quickly was inseparable from the large number of pills she took. Meng Wuya continued, the sacred spirit medicine body does not only have these benefits. If one cultivates a divine skill that is compatible with it, then as long as there is energy in the world, they can be refined into pills. Even the world's world energy, as long as disciple is willing, can be refined into pills. Anything in the world, as long as there is energy, can be refined into pills. If the world's world energy could be refined, then the 3 suns fruit would naturally not be a problem. Yang Kai could almost foresee that this senior sister Xia would definitely be the best alchemist in the world in the future. Just based on her unique physique, no one could compare to her. This time, Ning Cheng wants to break through to the Yuan Qi stage, but before that, she needs to refine something into her body. She can't do it alone. Meng Wuya looked at Yang Kai seriously. Is that why you need my help? Yang Kai asked. Meng Wuya nodded. What kind of thing? The 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew. This thing is extremely beneficial to condensing Yuan Qi. If not for the fact that I wanted Ning Cheng to refine this thing, I wouldn't have suppressed her cultivation. When one advanced from separation and reunion level to Yuan Qi level, the Yuan Qi in one's body would be transformed into Yuan Qi, and its quality would be improved by countless levels. This was a process that every cultivator would have to go through. However, during this process, if one supplemented it with a few heavenly treasures, then the quality of the transformed Yuan Qi would be better. This the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew was clearly such a heavenly treasure, and it was definitely the best heavenly treasure. The 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew has its own spirituality, so it's very difficult to obtain it. If someone who doesn't meet the requirements touches it, it will immediately turn into spirit qi and disappear. Only those who cultivate the yang attribute Yuan Qi have the ability to control it. Moreover, the yang attribute Yuan Qi in one's body must be pure to a certain degree. This is the reason why I'm looking for you. What exactly do I need to do? Yang Kai asked. Meng Wuya immediately became impatient. Why are you asking so much? When the time comes, I'll naturally tell you. Yang Kai pinched his nose, not knowing why old man Meng was so angry. Where is this thing? When are we leaving? In Black Wind Mountain, there is a 9th Yin congregation ground there. On the 7th day of the 7th month, Yin Qi gathers. Only then will the 9th Yin Yuan condensing dew appear and absorb the Yin Qi of heaven and earth. Then there aren't many days left. Yang Kai calculated a little and found that there were only a few days left until the 7th day of the 7th month. If they wanted to go deep into Black Wind Mountain, then the journey would take a lot of time. So if you don't have anything to do, I want to go there as soon as possible. If we miss this opportunity, we'll have to wait another year. Meng Wuya said seriously. I'm available at any time. Yang Kai smiled slightly. Then come to the contribution hall in 2 days to find me. I still need to prepare some materials. Meng Wuya said. Okay, then it's settled. Both sides agreed to meet at the contribution hall in 2 days, then Yang Kai left. Looking at his back, Meng Wuya sighed slightly. His expression was strange, and it was unknown what he was thinking. After a while, he said, "Disciple, are you sure you want to do this?" Xianing Chang's dress fluttered, and she nodded lightly, "Yes." Meng Wuya said, "Actually, you don't need to refine the ninth yin yuan condensing due to reach yuan qi. It's just that your strength will be slightly lower in the future." Xianing Chang laughed lightly, "But I want to help Master. Isn't it better to have pure yuan qi? Master saved me and raised me, and I want to help Master." "But, hey, why don't you think about it again?" The reason why Meng Wuya left 2 days was to let Xianing Chang think about it more. Xianing Chang blushed. "It's nothing. I don't hate him." Meng Wuya sighed. "That brat got lucky." Thinking of Yang Kai's indifferent expression, Meng Wuya gnashed his teeth in anger. "You're only here to help, but you don't think about how much of an advantage you'll get. Please don't cause any sparks." In the end, this small place was not a suitable place for his disciple. Meng Wuya was full of worry. Yang Kai didn't go to Su Yan's small loft again, and instead returned to the small wooden house he had been away from for a few days. Although he hadn't been back for a few days, the small wooden house was still as clean as new. Not even a speck of dust was left behind. He didn't know who had helped him clean. Although Treasurer Ming's explanation was vague, Kai Yang basically knew where he was going and what he had to do. Since it was the 9th Yin congregation ground, the Yin Qi there was definitely heavy. His true Yang Yuan Qi was the nemesis of Yin Qi, so he wasn't afraid. It was just that his current strength was too low. If he didn't store some Yang liquid, he wouldn't be able to last long. It just so happened that Senior Sister Xia helped him refine the 3 Suns fruit into pills, which was a good way to replenish his Yang liquid. There were 4 3 Sun fruit trees, and each tree had 3 fruits, which were refined into 12 bright red pills. If each pill could be refined into 3 drops of Yang liquid, then he would have a total of 36 drops of Yang liquid. Whether it was used in battle or to resist Yin Qi, this Yang liquid was very useful. It was something he could rely on to survive. It took Kai Yang an entire day to completely absorb the medicinal efficacies of the 12 pills. He didn't just obtain 36 drops of Yang liquid, but a total of 40 drops. Including the few drops he had in the Dantian, the Dantian's reserves were quite abundant. This time, he finally had some capital to rely on. Not only did he obtain so much Yang liquid, but when the last fruit was refined, Yang Kai found that he had broken through to the initial element boundary 4th stage. This breakthrough came without any warning, so he wasn't mentally prepared at all. The breakthrough was also quite natural, and he didn't even feel anything before it was completed. Thinking about it, Yang Kai felt that it was related to the pills he had eaten these past few days. First, he ate a dozen bottles of pills from Su Yan, then he ate 12 3 Suns pills. With such a large amount of energy gathered, it wasn't strange for him to break through. Chapter 85. The next morning, in front of the contribution hall, Yang Kai gently knocked on the door. A moment later, the door opened and Xianing Chang came out with a small package on her shoulder. The package was filled with many things. "Junior brother, you've come?" Xianing Chang softly greeted. "N." Yang Kai nodded. "Where's Treasurer Ming?" "He suddenly had a relapse yesterday and had to stay behind to treat his wounds. He can't go." While Xianing Chang was speaking, her eyes were flashing nonstop. Her 2 rows of dense eyelashes were also trembling like a fan. Yang Kai suspiciously looked at her, while Xianing Chang's eyes flashed with a trace of panic. "Then should we wait for him?" Yang Kai guessed, but didn't point it out. "No need. I know where that place is. Moreover, there's not much time left. Master said that we don't need to wait for him." Seeing that Yang Kai didn't want to get to the bottom of the matter, Xianing Chang couldn't help but feel relieved. "All right." Yang Kai hesitated for a moment, but still agreed. "We'll have to trouble Junior brother this time." Xianing Chang let out a long sigh. "Senior sister is too polite." Yang Kai smiled faintly. The 2 of them then left High Heaven Pavilion. In a side room of the contribution hall, Meng Wuya was currently sleeping on the table. There were several exquisite dishes on the table, as well as several pots of wine. It was obvious that Treasurer Ming was tasting the wine and delicacies before he fell asleep. These delicacies were all made by Xianing Chang, but there was a special seasoning added to them. Using Xianing Chang's sacred spirit medicine body as the base, Even an expert like Meng Wuya couldn't resist the special seasoning. Meng Wuya estimated that he would sleep for several days at the very least. Meng Wuya had been shrewd all his life, but he never thought that there would be a day when his old horse would stumble and fall at the hands of his treasured disciple. It could be said that one false step could lead to everlasting regret. By the time Meng Wuya woke up, everything would be a foregone conclusion. When Yang Kai and Xianing Cheng arrived at Black Plum Town, they bought 2 horses and some daily necessities before setting off. While shopping, Yang Kai also inquired about the location of the place they were going to. According to Xianing Cheng, it was about a 10-day journey from Black Plum Town to Black Wind Mountain. Although it was a long journey, they still had plenty of time. Not long after the two left High Heaven Pavilion, this news reached Xia Hongqin's ears. Since that day when he saw Su Yin and Yang Kai acting so intimately in the forest prison, Xia Hongqin had been drowning his sorrows in alcohol for several days. Yesterday, he had finally calmed down, and after thinking about it for a while, he felt that what had happened that day was not what he had seen. What kind of temperament Su Yin had, Xia Hongqin couldn't be any clearer. With her arrogance and strength, how could she be interested in Yang Kai, who was only at the 3rd level of the initial element realm? What's more, the two of them didn't seem to have any contact at all. They were basically strangers. Xia Hongqin finally understood that Su Yin and Yang Kai were only acting that day. At that time, jealousy had turned into hatred, and Xia Hongqin didn't have time to think about whether it was real or not. But after thinking about it, Xia Hongqin's spirit was greatly lifted. Yesterday, he went to find Su Yin to express his feelings. He was elegant and graceful, not at all crazy and out of control like that day. Although in the end, he was still kicked out by Su Yin, the knot in Xia Hongqin's heart was lifted. As long as Su Yin wasn't taken by another man, she would be his one day. Xia Hongqin was very confident. After all, he was the most outstanding male disciple of High Heaven Pavilion, and Su Yin was the most outstanding female disciple. The combination of the two was naturally something the elders wanted to see. Early in the morning, Xia Hongqin carefully prepared to go to Black Wind Trade to visit Su Yin. But just as he was about to leave, a disciple of the Law Enforcement Hall suddenly rushed in with a surprised expression. "Brother Xia, Yang Kai just left High Heaven Pavilion." Hearing this, Xia Hongqin's eyes lit up. He left alone? No, he left with a disciple of the Dark Hall called Xianing Cheng. The disciple replied, "Xianing Cheng." Xia Hongqin narrowed his eyes. "I know her. Her strength is comparable to mine, but she isn't a core disciple. That woman is very strange." Where did they go? Xia Hongqin thought for a moment, a trace of madness suddenly surging in his eyes. That waste actually left High Heaven Pavilion at this time. If I can kill him outside, wouldn't I be able to resolve the hatred in my heart? I don't know their destination, but it looks like they're going somewhere because they bought 2 horses in Black Plum Town. Going somewhere? Xia Hongqin raised his brow. Good, very good. After saying good a few times, Xia Hongqin suddenly turned his head and said with a ferocious expression, "Go find a few trustworthy senior martial brothers who are at least at the separation and reunion boundary to accompany me on this trip." "Brother, what do you want to do?" "Heh, isn't it obvious what I want to do? Why are you still asking?" Xia Hongqin's face contorted. He wanted to chase after Kai Yang and get rid of his love rival. He also couldn't let go of Xianing Cheng. After all, if the news were to leak out, it wouldn't be a joke. "Brother, this isn't right." The disciplinary hall disciple's face was a bit panicked. He didn't care about Yang Kai. He was just a trial disciple at the initial element boundary, so even if he died outside, no one would care. However, that Xianing Cheng from the Dark Hall was different. No one was clear about her background, but since she had the strength of a peak separation and reunion boundary cultivator, she was definitely not a nobody. If she died and the pavilion investigated, none of the senior brothers and junior brothers who were involved would be able to escape. "I told you to do it, so just do it. What are you being so long-winded for?" Xia Hongqin was full of impatience. "Do you want me to go find her myself?" Crazy jealousy had already made Xia Hongqin unable to maintain his composure. There was only one thought in his mind, to kill Yang Kai. "Brother, after what happened last time, The Great Elder gave a strict order that no one is to have any ideas about Yang Kai. Did you forget? With this reminder, Xia Hongchun suddenly came to his senses. That's right. The Great Elder suddenly gave an order that no one was to find trouble with Yang Kai for a short period of time. However, this order was inexplicable, so Xia Hongchun didn't take it to heart. However, this was such a great opportunity, so how could he let it go? If he didn't kill Yang Kai this time, how long would he have to wait? What if he always hid in the sect and didn't go out? Just as he was unwilling to give up, the disciplinary hall disciple seemed to have thought of something and smiled slyly. Brother Xia, we can't do it, but others can. There are many people who want Yang Kai's life. What do you mean? Xia Hongchun narrowed his eyes and asked. That person said, it is said that the blood group's deputy chief Long Zitian's grandson, Long Hui, has been inquiring about Yang Kai for the past month. Long Zitian, Xia Hongchun naturally knew about him. He was a well-known figure in the blood group, and his strength was also at the immortal ascension boundary. His grandson didn't have any outstanding points, and this year he was only at the Qi transformation stage. Huh. Xia Hongchun was confused. Why is Long Hui inquiring about him? That person's expression couldn't help but become ambiguous. It seems to be related to that dragon lady, Hu Mei Er. Long Hui has been pursuing Hu Mei Er, regarding her as his exclusive property. However, the relationship between Yang Kai and Hu Mei Er is unclear. Long Hui said that one day he will kill Yang Kai and let him know the consequences of having ideas about his woman. Hu Mei Er. In front of Xia Hongchun's eyes appeared a charming young girl with ample breasts and perky buttocks. For a moment, his breathing became heavy. This dragon lady was good at seducing people's hearts. Almost all the young disciples of the three sects had heard of her, and Xia Hongchun had also seen her once. That waste really isn't a good thing, unexpectedly having a relationship with this dragon lady. Xia Hongchun was jealous to death, but his mouth was full of righteousness and anger. After thinking for a moment, he suspiciously asked, "That's not right. Where did you get such detailed information?" Even if Long Hui wanted to take Yang Kai's life, he couldn't have done so with such great fanfare. Wasn't this beating the grass to scare the snake? If Yang Kai heard about it, how could he have the guts to leave High Heaven Pavilion? As long as Long Hui's brain wasn't damaged, he wouldn't have done such a thing. That person's face became awkward, and he didn't know how to answer. Speak. Xia Hongchun's face sank. Yes. This person had no choice but to confess. A few days ago, I was at Black Plum Village's Spring Breeze Drizzle building. When I was drinking, Long Hui happened to live next door, and I heard him talking to the girl in the room. Spring Breeze Drizzle building. Xia Hongchun unhappily looked at this junior brother. That was a brothel in Black Plum Village. What did he go there for? There was no need to ask. It couldn't be just for drinking. That person continued, Brother Xia. If Long Hui knew about this, he definitely wouldn't let Yang Kai off so easily. We don't need to do it ourselves. What's more, Long Hui is a lecher by nature. If we tell him that Yang Kai has a beautiful girl by his side, what do you think he will do? Xia Hongchun's eyes lit up, and he coldly laughed. Brilliant plan. This move of using a borrowed knife to kill someone was really not bad. After pondering for a moment, Xia Hongchun decided, since Long Hui wants to find him, then we'll send him a message. However, this matter must be done in secret and must not be exposed. We must not let him know that we were the ones who sent the message. In addition, we must tell Long Hui that the girl by Yang Kai's side has the strength of a peak separation and reunion boundary cultivator. Don't let him go for wool and come home shorn. Yes. That person hurriedly left after receiving the order. Yang Kai, let's see if you can survive this time. Only, it was a pity that Xianing Chong. That girl always wore a veil. Although he had never seen her face, Xia Hongchun was almost certain that she was a stunning beauty. If such a girl fell into Long Hui's hands, there was no need to think about what would happen. For a moment, Xia Hongchun was somewhat envious of Long Hui. The High Heaven Pavilion's law enforcement hall was ready to make a move. Somewhere in Black Plum Town, there were also people who were ready to make a move. Not long after Yang Kai and Xianing Chong rode away, a group of people suddenly emerged from the dark. The leader with a cold face stared at Yang Kai's back and asked, "Did you see that guy clearly?" Is he Yang Kai? Absolutely. Senior brother Nu Lang. He is Yang Kai without a doubt. Last time, we were beaten up by him. After that, senior brother Chang Xiaofeng went to look for senior brother Nu Tao and said that he would find an opportunity to teach him a lesson. However, ever since that time they went to Black Wind Trade City, the two of them never returned. Nu Lang's face was gloomy. He waved his hand and said, "Go buy some horses. I want to know whether my brother is dead or alive, and where he is." Nu Tao had been missing for more than a month. Nu Lang couldn't find him. After inquiring left and right, he finally found Yang Kai. To find out the truth, he had to catch up with that Yang Kai. If it was related to him, then as the older brother, he naturally had to avenge his younger brother. Chapter 86. In Nu Lang's group, he was the strongest. He had just broken through to the Qi transformation stage, so the Yuan Qi in his body was restless. At this stage, the cultivator was easily angered and controlled by all kinds of emotions. The other 7 or 8 people were mostly in the tempered body stage. There were also a few cultivators in the initial element stage, but their strength wasn't very high. It was just that they had a large number of people. Nu Lang had naturally heard of Yang Kai's strength, so he didn't take Yang Kai seriously. However, the girl following Yang Kai didn't seem to be easy to deal with. But after thinking about it carefully, this girl wasn't that great. After all, she didn't look very old. She didn't seem to be among the famous disciples of the High Heaven Pavilion. Moreover, if she was really strong, why would she need to buy a horse? When one's strength reached a certain level, one's leg strength was much faster than a horse's. Thinking of this, Nu Lang was relieved. He didn't know that the reason why Xianing Chang wanted to buy a horse was to take care of Yang Kai. After all, Yang Kai was only at the initial element stage 4, so how fast could his leg strength be? The group of Stormhouse disciples quickly prepared and followed the tracks of the horses. Yang Kai and Xianing Chang were also galloping, but they didn't know that there were 2 groups of people following them. Moreover, each group didn't have good intentions. Although Xianing Chang's strength wasn't bad, after all, she hadn't condensed her divine sense, so it was impossible for her to investigate the surroundings. The 2 people galloped without saying a word. Xianing Chang led the way in the front, and Yang Kai followed closely behind her. The 2 horses galloped, one in front and one behind. Until night, the 2 people found a place with a water source to rest. After taking out the food they bought from Black Plum Town, the 2 people ate a little and then sat around the campfire to rest. After a day of getting along with each other, Yang Kai had figured out this little senior sister's temperament. Timid, shy, after a few words, her ears would turn red, and when she spoke, her voice was soft and gentle, as if she didn't have a temper. With her personality, Yang Kai didn't want to take the initiative to talk to her. He didn't want to scare her. Ever since the day he comprehended the mysteries of the unyielding golden skeleton and comprehended the mysterious martial skill unyielding will, Yang Kai discovered that his true Yang tactics had changed. Running the true Yang secret art in an environment with Yang Qi, he could absorb Yang Qi and condense Yang liquid. In an environment where there was no Yang Qi, he could still circulate his true Yang secret art and absorb the surrounding spiritual energy. After the true Yang Yuan Qi in his body was refined, it would be absorbed by his unyielding golden skeleton. The restriction of the cultivation environment disappeared in an instant. For Yang Kai, this was simply great news. After traveling for 3 days, the 2 people finally arrived at a small town 1,000 miles away from High Heaven Pavilion. They parked their horses in the town and found an inn to stay for the time being. According to Xianing Chang, they wouldn't need horses for the rest of the journey. Because they were going into the mountains, horses naturally couldn't be brought in. Late at night, the inn was quiet. Yang Kai and Xianing Chang stayed next door. The room was brightly lit. Yang Kai was meditating and cultivating, while Xianing Chang was thinking about random things. In these 3 days of traveling together, the 2 didn't exchange more than 10 words. Xianing Chang felt very awkward. After all, he came to ask for help, so it was somewhat unreasonable to neglect him like this. But every time he wanted to talk to him, Xianing Chang couldn't muster up the courage. He was used to secretly observing him, so now that he suddenly had to meet him face to face, Xianing Chang really didn't know what to do. Moreover, this junior brother seemed to be a taciturn person. If he went to talk to him, Wouldn't he be annoyed? Just as Xianing Chang was frowning, the other two groups of people in the inn were quietly paying attention to what was happening here. In a guest room, Long Hui and a group of Blood Group's elites were sitting inside. The dim candlelight flickered, illuminating Long Hui's somewhat distorted face. After the Blood Group's people got the news, they chased after them. But after all, they started a little late, so it wasn't until today that they finally caught up. After a moment of silence, Long Hui suddenly said, "Hall Master 1, when do we start?" That Yang Kai is staying in this inn. With Hall Master Wen's skill, it shouldn't be difficult to capture him, right? When Fei Chun was a middle-aged man, his strength was at Yuan Qi boundary level 5, and he was one of the Blood Group's Hall Masters. Because the information Long Hui obtained was accurate, he found an expert to accompany him. His purpose was to capture Xianing Chang alive. In addition to Wen Fei Chun, this group of people had many separation and reunion boundary experts. The number of people was about 6 or 7. It could be seen that Long Hui was making a big fuss in order to ensure that nothing would go wrong. Hearing this, Wen Fei Chun smiled, "Young Master Long, if you want this one to start now, it's not impossible. Although this is a small town, with this one's strength, if I want to deal with them, it will be easy. I won't disturb the bystanders, and I won't leave behind any clues." Then what are we waiting for? Long Hui's expression shook. Yang Kai must die, and that woman must be captured alive. It is said that she is a peerless beauty. Since he dares to set his sights on my woman, then I'll give him a taste of his own medicine. I'll let him have a taste of his woman being targeted by others. When Fei Chun knew Long Hui's nature, so he didn't have much of a reaction. He only said, "But young Master Long, have you ever thought about why they came all the way to this place?" "Why?" Long Hui asked in a deep voice. When Fei Chun pondered for a moment, then said, "This one believes that they must have their own purpose. Perhaps they want to enter Black Wind Mountain to find some kind of treasure." Long Hui frowned. "What does this have to do with us? There are many treasures in Black Wind Mountain, but not everyone can find them." When Fei Chun shook his head, "Young Master Long's words are wrong. You can enter Black Wind Mountain from High Heaven Pavilion, but they rode their horses for thousands of miles and stopped here. If I didn't guess wrong, tomorrow they will enter the mountain from here. Their purpose is so clear, then one thing can be certain. They know where the treasure is and will definitely find it. If we quietly follow them from behind and wait for them to find the treasure." It has to be said that when Fei Chun's observation was very meticulous, and his analysis was also quite accurate. He was worthy of being called an experienced person. Long Hui's eyes lit up. "We can take action and steal it." When Fei Chun smiled, "Young Master Long is right. But if young Master Long can't wait to have a beauty, then this one can take action tonight. I won't let you down." Long Hui hesitated, his expression somewhat uncertain. When Fei Chun said, "But if we wait a few more days, not only can we have a beauty, but we can also have the treasure. Think about it. If they spend so much effort to find the treasure, but it is snatched by us, then Yang Kai will be so angry that he will vomit blood, right?" Hearing this, Long Hui's hesitant expression immediately became firm. "Good, in any case, they can run away, but they can't run away from the temple. Then we will let Yang Kai live for a few more days, and we will just sit back and reap the benefits." When Fei Chun lightly smiled and said, "To be able to endure what normal people cannot, young Master Long is destined to be a person who does great things." This Long is impressed. "Haha, Hallmaster 1 is overpraising me." This flattery made Long Hui extremely comfortable. Chapter 87. When Fei Chun was trying to please Long Hui. Naturally, there was a reason for this. Although the leader of the blood group, who man, was an ambitious and ruthless person, but the heavens didn't favor him. In this life, he only had 2 beautiful daughters. In Wen Fei Chun's opinion, in the future, the blood group would sooner or later fall into the hands of the Long family. Naturally, he had to get along well with this young master. When the Long family took control of the blood group in the future, how could he not benefit? The group of people in the room finished their discussion and were about to rest. Suddenly, there was a soft knock on the door. "Come in," Wen Fei Chun shouted. The door opened and a disciple of the blood group who was on guard came in. He saluted Long Hui and then whispered a few words in Wen Fei Chun's ear. when Fei Chen's expression suddenly became strange. He couldn't help but whisper, "So that's how it is." Then, he winked at several people in the room and ordered, "Go, capture those people. We can't let them ruin Master Long's plans." Yes, several people responded and quickly went out of the room. "What happened?" Long Hui asked. When Fei Chen chuckled, "Young Master Long, this is really interesting. Do you remember that on our way here, there were many hoof prints along the way? But according to the information we received, Yang Kai's group was only 2 people. At that time, I guess that those hoof prints were just people passing by. But I didn't expect that, besides us, there were other people following Yang Kai." "Oh?" Long Hui was surprised. "Who is it?" "A few small characters from Stormhouse." At this moment, they seem to be preparing to deal with Yang Kai. It seems that they don't know that the strength of the woman who is with Yang Kai is not something they can deal with. This is the same as courting death. Long Hui sneered, "Hall Master One, have you arranged it properly? Of course, we can't let them ruin young Master Long's great plan." When Fei Chen nodded slightly, while the two of them were talking, a large number of people suddenly rushed in from outside the door. The disciples of the blood group who had just left had all returned. Accompanying them were Nu Lang and the others who were panic-stricken. Nu Lang's group was scared out of their wits. It wasn't easy for them to come here today. They were planning to capture Yang Kai and ask for the missing Nu Tao and Cheng Xiaofeng. Who would have thought that before they could take action, they would be captured by this group of fiendish experts whose strength far surpassed theirs? Nu Lang was scared out of his wits. After he was thrown in, he hurried to kneel and kowtow to beg for mercy. "Masters, we haven't offended you, have we? Please be magnanimous." "Shut up." A disciple of the blood group slapped him, causing his mouth to be filled with blood, but he didn't dare to say anything. He could only obediently obey. The people of the storm house trembled in fear as they looked around. Although their strength wasn't high, they could see that any one of these people could kill them, not to mention that there were 6 or 7 experts surrounding them. Who did they offend? The group of people racked their brains, but still couldn't figure it out. During this time, they hadn't done anything outrageous. At most, they had plotted to capture Yang Kai in the room just now, but they hadn't done anything yet, right? Why did they have to make such a big scene? Nu Lang looked around and suddenly found a familiar young man in front of him. At this moment, the young man was looking at him with a smile. After thinking carefully, Nu Lang's face changed greatly. He probed, "Are you Long Hui of the blood group?" Long Hui chuckled, "Do you know me?" Nu Lang smiled embarrassedly, "Descendant of Senior Long, I have heard a lot about you. Of course, I know you. Since you know me, this matter is easy to handle." Long Hui nodded slightly. Nu Lang was full of doubts. He couldn't understand why they had met the people of the blood group thousands of miles away. Although it was a good thing to meet an old friend in a foreign land, but in this situation, people under the eaves had no choice but to lower their heads. "I ask you, why are you chasing after Yang Kai?" Long Hui narrowed his eyes and asked. Nu Lang's heart skipped a beat. He thought that Long Hui was blaming him. Although he was scared, he didn't dare to hide the truth. After he finished, he said with a sad face, "Master Long, I only suspected that Yang Kai had something to do with my brother's disappearance. I didn't want to do anything to him. If you think there is a problem, I will immediately take people back to the storm house. I will never have any ideas about Yang Kai again." Long Hui smiled. "Do you think that Yang Kai and I are friends? Are you not?" Nu Lang looked timid. "What a joke." Long Hui coldly snorted. "What is this young master's identity? What is his identity? Are we friends? Your dog eyes are blind." Nu Lang didn't dare to answer. In his heart, he was cursing incessantly. He thought that since they weren't friends, why did you interfere in our grudges? Wasn't this like a dog trying to catch a mouse? You have no eyesight. Master Long has saved your lives this time, and you don't even know how to thank him. A disciple of the blood group reprimanded. Nu Lang and the others were confused. That disciple of the blood group sneered, "You only know that Yang Kai's strength is low, but do you know that the woman beside him is a master of separation and reunion boundary?" With this sentence, Nu Lang and the others were sweating profusely. Separation and reunion boundary, Compared to Nu Lang's Qi transforming stage first level, it was 2 realms higher. If they were to really fight, that woman alone would be able to annihilate Nu Tao's entire army. At this moment, Nu Lang realized what kind of mistake he had made. For a moment, he was scared and rejoiced. He repeatedly kowtowed, "Thank you, Master Long, for saving us. We can't thank you enough." A group of people from the storm house also quickly thanked him. "Well, it's good that you know." Long Hui seemed to enjoy the support of others. "I'm not afraid to tell you that this time, I came to take Yang Kai's life. But you have to wait for a few more days. Because of your rash actions, I almost beat the grass to scare the snake, which ruined my plan. We didn't know. Please forgive us, Master Long." Nu Lang's face was full of fear and trepidation. "Forget it. I won't argue with you. Everyone's target is Yang Kai, so you can follow me. After I capture Yang Kai, you can inquire about your brother's whereabouts." Although Nu Lang felt that something was wrong, his group's strength was low, so how could they resist? He immediately nodded and said, "We will follow Master Long's order. Even if we have to go through water and tread on fire, we won't refuse. Go back. I will find you tomorrow." Long Hui waved his hand. "Yes." Nu Lang and the others got up from the ground and slowly retreated. When they got out of the house, they realized that their clothes were soaked. After they left, Long Hui looked at Wen Fei Chen with a puzzled expression. "Hall Master One, why did you take them with you? Their strength is too low, so it's easy for them to be exposed. Can't we kill Yang Kai and capture that woman?" What Long Hui had just said was what Wen Fei Chen had told him. Although he had followed the instructions, Long Hui didn't understand the reason behind it. Chapter 88. Hearing the disdain in Long Hui's words, Wen Fei Chen smiled and said, "Killing Yang Kai and capturing that woman naturally doesn't require them to intervene. But young Master Long, since Yang Kai and that woman want to enter the Black Wind Mountains, they must have prepared beforehand and are not afraid of the dangers. But we are different. Although our strength is not weak, the Black Wind Mountains are full of dangers. Not to mention the powerful monster beast, there are some natural poisonous traps which could cause us to lose people. But if someone is in front of us, we don't need to worry about these things." After Long Hui finished listening, he finally understood what Wen Fei Chen was planning. He wanted to use Storm House's group as a stepping stone to avoid any possible dangers. "Well, Hall Master Wen's consideration is very thorough. I was negligent." Long Hui nodded slightly. "Young Master Long is talented and intelligent, but after all, you are not experienced enough and have a simple heart, so you didn't think of this layer." Wen Fei Chen chuckled. As for how to deal with the Storm House people, both of them had a tacit understanding, so there was no need to say more. That woman called Xianing Chong had the strength of peak separation and reunion boundary at such a young age, so there must be a master behind her. To deal with this kind of person, one must either not offend them, or cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. The Storm House people must not be left alive. After the arrangements were made, the Blood Group people went asleep. The next day, Yang Kai and Xianing Chong, as Wen Fei Chen expected, changed direction from the small town and went directly into the Black Wind Mountains. After they left for half a day, the Blood Group and Storm House people dared to follow them. Xianing Cheng's strength was not weak. If they were too close, they might be discovered. But if they were too far away, they might lose them, so half a day's time was the best. Wen Fei Chen had been in Jianghu for many years, so he naturally had some experience in tracking. He was certain that he would not lose track of these two juniors in the mountains. After entering the Black Wind Mountains, Yang Kai and Xianing Cheng's speed naturally slowed down. Without the whistling of the wind and the distance between them, the two people talked a lot, and after a day, they felt closer to each other. At night, Yang Kai and Xianing Chong found a towering tree and went to rest on the trunk. The trunk was very spacious, so the two people were almost sitting side by side, leaving a small gap between them. Yang Kai could almost smell Ning Cheng's body fragrance. Little senior sister. After becoming familiar with each other, Kai Yang and her no longer had that feeling of estrangement. Even the way they addressed each other had changed. This was because Kai Yang felt that Xianing Chong was like a child that hadn't grown up yet. Especially those pair of eyes, they gave off a feeling of innocence and innocence. Senior sister is senior sister. Why did you add the word little? Xianing Chong was a little unhappy. What's in that bag of yours? Ignoring her question, Kai Yang pointed to the bag she had put aside and asked. Yang Kai had been holding back this question for 4 or 5 days, so he had to get it out of his mouth. This. Xianing Chong was easily changed the topic. She held the bag in her arms like it was a treasure. This is the material that Master has prepared over the years. When the time comes, if you can take the 9 yuan condensing dew, I will have to refine it on the spot. The 9 yuan condensing dew is a very special thing. Even if you take it, if you don't refine it within 2 hours, it will slowly dissipate. So that's how it is. Yang Kai nodded. Junior brother. Xianing Chong suddenly called out kindly. What's wrong? I have a question for you. Good. I also have a question for you. Yang Kai smiled. Then we have to answer honestly, okay? Okay. I'll ask first. Xianing Chong said impatiently. Go ahead. Yang Kai chuckled. I promise I won't lie to you. Xianing Chong pursed her lips and turned to look at Yang Kai. She hesitated for a moment before saying, I heard Master say that when he asked for your help, you would make all sorts of excuses. But when you knew it was me who needed your help, you immediately agreed. Why? What do you think? Yang Kai also turned to look at her. When their eyes met, Xianing Chong blushed a little. They were too close, so she quickly turned her head and said, I don't know, but Master said that you don't have good intentions and told me to be wary of you. Old Man Ming said that? Yang Kai was furious. Yes. Xianing Chong sold out her master without any guilt. That old man. Yang Kai was furious. What kind of person did he think he was? Then why did you agree to it? Yang Kai glanced at her and laughed. Your master is right. I don't have good intentions towards you. That's why I agreed so quickly. While grinning, he slowly approached Xianing Chong. Xianing Chong was startled and instinctively shrank back. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something and said with a serious expression, Junior brother, you can't beat me. This was the truth. Yang Kai estimated that if he continued to act presumptuously, he would immediately be sent flying. Xianing Chong was indeed delicate, but that didn't mean she was easy to deal with. Yang Kai put away the smile on his face, and his expression became serious. He slowly took out a bottle from his chest and carefully rubbed it. Because of this, Xianing Chong was puzzled. Looking down, she saw that it was a bottle of High Heaven Pavilion's external injury medicine, blood coagulation cream. The scene from 2 months ago flashed through her mind. Xianing Chong immediately covered her mouth and looked at Yang Kai in a daze. She didn't expect that he would still keep this bottle of blood coagulation cream. Yang Kai laughed. I, Yang Kai, can see who is good to me. After entering the sect for 3 years, this bottle of blood coagulation cream is the first warmth and care I've felt. How did you know? Xianing Chong looked at him in disbelief. She really did leave this bottle of cream for Yang Kai, but wasn't he unconscious at the time? Yang Kai raised his eyebrows. There's a saying that one can recognize a woman by smelling her fragrance. Xianing Chang's face turned red. These words made her feel like a lecher, but her heart relaxed. It turned out that he didn't hesitate to help her just because of this blood coagulation cream that was worth 10 sect contribution points. Master was wrong. It's your turn to ask. Since she had figured out her doubts, Xianing Chong didn't want to get to the bottom of it, so she quickly changed the topic. Yang Kai carefully put away the bottle of blood coagulation cream and said, Treasurer Ming couldn't have come because of an old illness, right? Xianing Chong suddenly became bashful. After a long time, she shyly said, I used medicine to knock him out. Yang Kai was stunned. Then he suddenly burst into laughter and couldn't stop. What are you laughing at? Xianing Chong was embarrassed and angry. That night, he suddenly told me not to come. I had no choice but to knock him out. Yang Kai was still laughing. Xianing Chong couldn't help but lightly hit him a few times. After hitting him, she realized that this action was a bit too intimate. For a moment, she was embarrassed and didn't know what to do. I'm going to rest. You can laugh by yourself. Xianing Chong was too embarrassed to stay here any longer. Leaping up, she jumped onto another tree and refused to pay any more attention to Kai Yang. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.